Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome Monday, May the 15th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. As always, appreciate you all tuning in and welcome in to the very first edition of a 3-hour TDC. I'm not going to go through everything I went through last week, breaking down the format. I think you guys know at this point. But in the third hour, we're going to nickname that our Power Hour. That's when I'll take all of your questions, your comments, and your calls. So please, over the course of the first 2 hours, leave all of that for us over at 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Guys, again, if you want to leave a voicemail, if you can't call in between the hour 2 and 3, that third hour, we will play your voicemails. Of course, we'll look at all your texts. You can text that number as well. And make sure you comment in the chat box still here on YouTube. Also, guys, the first day that the show is exclusively being aired on YouTube. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live and when we drop new video content. Now, I know I said that I would not be paying attention to or looking at or taking, I should say, taking questions in the first hour. I will say this. If you submit a question with a super chat and or you're in the Big Cock Club Discord, you're in the TDC Questions channel, we will take those questions or at least get to those questions that go along with the conversation that we're having, because as I told you guys in this first hour, got some topics I want to hit on. Second hour, we got my good friend Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. And our third hour will be our Power Hour. And guys, in case you missed it, our full guest lineup is out today. Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. Tuesday, we'll have JC Sherbert of the Big Spur. Wednesday, JD Piquel of On3 Sports. Thursday, Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate. And Friday, beginning on June the 2nd, we will have my good friend Jake Crane. So we've got a star-studded lineup here in the Daily Crow, as really I feel like it's a revamped TDC. It's still the TDC you all know and love, but the way that I mentioned, we distribute content, we produce content, really, really excited for what's going to be taking place. Of course, guys, we had our Rowdy Rooster rundown last night. We gave our instant reactions and breakdowns of everything that happened in Fayetteville over the weekend. And of course, guys, that is where we'll start. I will say thank you all so much for tuning in. Yeah, maybe the biggest news of all today, the theme music is back because we are only airing on YouTube. It was Facebook that gave us all of the copyright issues and the music issues, even though the music was music that is ours. We own the music, and for some reason, still, they were giving us trouble. So with the show only being aired on YouTube, we are able now to have the intros, have the 5-minute break with the music that I feel like we haven't had the music in so long. It's awesome stuff. Again, guys, hope you had a fantastic weekend. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you had a great Mother's Day as well. Again, a belated happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And I see our normals. I see our usuals tuned in. John Edward, Braddock, Chase, Bruin Nation, Brennan M., my guy GAC, Youngblood, Colton Carnell, Arthur Bear, Stephanie Lee, Ethan, Panic Ritter starting us off. And with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get in everything. I want to start with the SEC standings. D1Baseball.com ranking is coming out. And South Carolina, I say as expected, but I'm not sure I quite expected the drop-off that we saw in the rankings. Gamecocks did not get punished severely after the last couple of weekends, dropping 2 of 3 to Auburn. You get swept by Kentucky, and you only dropped to 6th overall in the country, which I thought was a little bit surprising that you didn't fall farther. But it was almost like D1 baseball made up for it, right? They made up for it after this past weekend because the rankings come out this morning. Gamecocks are ranked 13th in college baseball. And I think the thing that irks people more than anything is that the arch rival, Clem Sucks, now sits projected, if it ended today, a top 8 national seed. Here's what the top 25 looks like by D1Baseball.com. At number 1, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. And I mean, guys, what a year. What a season they're having. 42-8 overall. They've been number 1 for a couple of weeks now. I mean, it's absolutely incredible what they're doing. The Gamecocks just lost 2 of 3 to. Arkansas sits at number 2. Stanford, number 3. Florida, number 4, after sweeping the Vanderbilt Commodores, a huge series sweep. LSU at number 5. They just lost 2 of 3 to Mississippi State. West Virginia, number 6. Clem sucks at number 7, 35-17 overall. Guys, they jump all the way from 16 to 7. Coastal Carolina at number 8. So we might have 2 top 8 national seeds from the state of South Carolina, and maybe 3 if the Gamecocks can finish up this season strong. At number 9, you got UConn, Oregon State at 10, Miami at 11, Vanderbilt at 12. So they drop all the way from 5th to 12th. So really, Vandy and South Carolina were the 2 teams that really got punished for losing their series this past weekend. Vandy at 12, South Carolina at 13, Campbell at 14, East Carolina at 15, Duke at 16, Dallas Baptist at 17, Tennessee jumps up to 18, Kentucky at 19, Maryland 20, Virginia 21, Boston College 22, Southern Miss 23, Washington 24th, and Oklahoma State at 25 rounds out the top 25. UTSA and Oregon, the 2 teams that were dropped from the D1Baseball.com top 25. And as we look at the SEC standings, Arkansas leads the entire conference, sitting at 19-8 overall in SEC play, a 38-13 overall record. You didn't look. LSU 17-9 in SEC play, Florida 17-9 in SEC play, Vanderbilt 17-9 in SEC play. South Carolina then comes in at 15-11 in SEC play. Kentucky at 15-12. Obviously, the Gamecocks with 1 less game because of that Game 3 being canceled against LSU. You've got Auburn at 14-13, who's one of the hottest teams in all of college baseball. You look at Tennessee, who's 14-13. Then you got Bama at 13-14, Texas A&M at 12-15. Then you go to, Missouri at 10-17, Georgia at 10-17, and then at the bottom, Mississippi State at 8-19, and Ole Miss at 6-21. Now, where I want to start with this, guys, you go look on social media. You listen to the narratives right now. Here's what I understand. I mentioned this last night, but I want to echo this yet again. It's not time to hit the panic button, guys. I know that it's frustrating, and I hate to sound like a broken record over and over and over again, because I feel like I was saying something very similar this time last week. And really, truly, it's the Kentucky series that irks me more than anything. It's that weekend, guys. We talked about it weeks ago, right? Sweeps are what really throw your season one way or the other. Losing 2 of 3 sucks, but it doesn't derail your season. It's the sweeps that throw you off the tracks, if you will. So if you'd have lost 2 of 3 in Lexington, it would have stung, but not nearly to the level as now we sit. The problem with this past weekend was this. Fans of the Yardcocks were demanding and expecting a series win this past weekend because of, well, you've lost 2 series in a row. You lost 2 of 3 to Auburn. You got swept by Kentucky. Now you got to get it in gear. The problem is you were going to Baum Walker Stadium to take on the 3rd-ranked team, now 2nd-ranked team. You could argue they're the best team in all of college baseball. That's not a good position to be in, guys. With that being said, I actually come out of this weekend encouraged by what I saw over the weekend, believe it or not. Were the sticks not there? Absolutely. But it's an Arkansas club. They've got elite pitching, and it's tough to win at Baum Walker Stadium. What I saw, and guys, I'm not trying to approach this with garnet glasses in any way. I'm not trying to be sunshine pumper C Philly over here. I'm not trying to be sunshine and rainbows. I don't think anybody would label me as such. I'm just simply trying to give you perspective. And I had somebody tell me this morning, Chris, you can't look at this series in a vacuum. You've got to include what's happened over the last couple of weeks. I mean, do you, though? Do you? I think South Carolina played much better. Pitching was elite. Defense was clean, if not elite level as well. I thought you played championship level defense. And I think the biggest takeaway offensively is this: when you're on the road in the SEC against one of the best teams in college baseball, and you're facing the type of arms that an Arkansas has, when you get an opportunity early to punish those guys, when you get an opportunity early to make some noise, to scratch out a few runs, you got to do it, because you're not going to get many of those opportunities, guys. You're not going to get many of those chances. And the Gamecocks had chances in games 1 and game 3, and they were not able to capitalize. And so you saw a guy, you saw the Arkansas starter settle in, right? You saw him settle in that ball game. And once he did, it was game over. You saw Hagen Smith in game 1. You saw him settle in. Holland was the starter yesterday. Settle in. And once those guys get in the groove and they get going, it's going to be really tough, especially on their own mound and their home field, their home fans behind them. It's just going to be really, really tough. Now, I think there are reasons for this slump, if you will. Hey, this team's been on the road the last 2 weekends. Tough to win on the road in the SEC. And again, we're talking about a Kentucky team that's pretty damn good themselves. Top 20 ball club. They were at one time thought of as a top 8 national seed. And Auburn, who you lost to, who's one of the hottest teams in college baseball. I'm not saying do not be frustrated. That's not what I'm saying. Hell, I'm frustrated because losing sucks. Losing is not fun. And I sort of chuckle at myself right now because I'm constantly labeled as this negative, toxic, wanting to just constantly fire the coaches type of dude. And I was someone that was very vocal last year about Mark Kingston and the job that he was or was not doing at that point. And you see the success right now, by the way. You see the success that Eric Bakich is having at Clemson. I thought that was a great hire when it happened, and I think he's only reconfirming that. I would have gladly taken Eric Bakich in Columbia. But the fact of the matter is we did not do that. Mark Kingston returned. He brought in Monty Lee, and he brought in all these pieces in the transfer portal. And even I'm sitting here, like, I feel like it's crazy. I was the one last year, fire Mark Kingston. It's time for a change. I was ready. And even I'm sitting here now, I feel like I'm almost, because I'm injecting some perspective and I'm not ready to burn it all down with 4 regular season games, the SEC tournament, and the postseason to play. I feel like I've almost turned to like I'm the Mark Kingston defender now. And I'm not even really defending Mark Kingston, guys. This season plays out the way it's going. If the turnaround doesn't happen, if the upswing does not come, I can assure you I'll be there. I can assure you I will be there. You know I will. We'll say what needs to be said. We'll call it as we see it. That will happen. The expectations were very clearly set in preseason. And we'll get into that more in just a second. But there's just still baseball to be played. No doubt this team is going through a slump. But I just think as easily as this team has slipped and has gone through a slump, this team can catch fire. I really, truly do believe that. And you're not far off. Believe it or not, I don't think you're far off. I thought you played much better baseball this past weekend. The pitching was elite. The defense was elite. You just need your sticks to come back around. And here's the good thing, guys. We're not hoping for something that we haven't seen this season. We've seen this lineup be productive. We've seen this lineup be explosive, be lethal, dare I say. It's in there. We know what these guys are capable of. Just needed to come back. And so now you hope as you look into this week, and we got a lot to talk about all week long, guys, of course, but you look at this week, 4 games at Founders Park, 4 regular season games left. I mean, this is the week to do it. This is the week to get off the schneid and get hot once again. But hitting the panic button, I think what has happened, here's what happened. I think what has happened is we came into this season with a certain set of expectations. We all said super regionals are bust. Did we not all agree with that? I think a lot of us did. Some people out there said Omaha are bust. And, you know, I wasn't quite ready to go there, but I like your spunk. I like your attitude. Super regionals or bust. We all said that. Nobody had goals of winning the SEC. Nobody had goals of winning 50 games. Nobody had goals of winning 20 SEC games. Get to the super regionals. That was the goal for South Carolina baseball this year. A goal that is still very well intact. Guys, I mean, I'm seeing people all over the place. We're going to travel for the regionals. Guys, South Carolina is going to host a regional. I'm here to tell you right now. And if it doesn't happen, I am willing to eat crow until the end of time. But South Carolina is going to host a regional. They are. They're going to be one of the top 16 out there. Hell, if they play their cards right and they go on a winning streak this last week and into the SEC tournament, guys, they still might be a top 8 national seed. It's like nobody wants to hear that. And I don't know why. Burn it down. The season's over. You're going to run into adversity in the game of baseball, guys. It's inevitable, and maybe why I'm able to stomach it so much more. And I'm not hitting the panic button, and it's not time to hit the panic button on the Yardcocks. But maybe the reason that I'm able to stomach it so much more, I've been around the game. I've seen the game. I'm certainly not coming from a place of, well, I've played it and you haven't. No. If you watch baseball enough, though, you know that the numbers even themselves out. When South Carolina swept Florida, beat in LSU, was what, 34-6 or whatever it was? I thought to myself, this is great. This is awesome. How long will it last? There's going to be a lull in this season. There's going to be a dip. It's just inevitable. At that moment, I did not think Carolina was going to be a 50-game winner. Didn't think they were going to win 22 or 23 in SEC play. I mean, guys, a couple of weeks ago, we're in the Big Cock Club Discord, and I say to myself, you know, we're talking, what's Carolina going to finish at? What's the SEC record going to be? And I think I mentioned, I think we'll probably finish 19-11. And there were BCC members, I won't call them by name, that scoffed at me. We're getting more than 19 SEC wins, man. Come on. It's just baseball, man. You come back down to earth. So with South Carolina as good as we saw in the 3-game sweep against Florida and that game 1 against LSU, maybe not. Maybe they're not quite that good. That was the ceiling for a reason. It's your ceiling. Is South Carolina as bad as we've seen over the last 3 weekends, especially against Auburn, and I think that weekend in Lexington against Kentucky? No, that's the floor. Truth somewhere in the middle. You just hope that the reality is closer to that ceiling than the floor. But guys, it's not time. It's not time to hit the panic button on the Yardcocks. There's still baseball to be played. There's not a lot left, and this week is huge. Please don't misconceive this from me saying that it's totally fine. This week's huge. The urgency's there. The urgency's there. But I just do not, and I know people love to overreact, love to panic. Panic Ritter, king of it. People love to panic. They love to overreact. I understand that. It's a popular thing to do. Folks are emotional. I get it. But as I said last week, let them die before you put the final nail in the coffin. Let them die first. Let them die first. And the Yardcocks ain't dead yet, man. That's all I'm saying. The Yardcocks ain't dead yet. I know it's been ugly. I know it's tough to stomach. I know it's hard to watch. I get it. It's hard to watch at times. But the Yardcocks ain't dead yet. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Do not hit the panic button. Do not hit the panic button. Big week this week, though. Guys, let's go ahead and jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, I want to continue to have great conversation. We'll hear from you in hour number 3. See, even I'm getting used to it, making the adjustment. Guys, more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Watch your Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, welcome back. Again, Monday, May the 15th, 2023. I see all of you commenting in the YouTube chat box. Thank you so much. Again, guys, we will get to all of your questions in our Q&A Power Hour from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. That'll be the case each and every single day as we roll out the new Daily Crow format. Excited to chat with Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, in our second hour. And, guys, you notice I normally do not take a break at the 12:15 or the 12:20 mark. But because it is now a 3-hour show, we will begin to do that. So you can expect the breaks to come at these times around 12:15 or 12:20, and then around 12:40, 12:45. So those 15 or 20-minute marks and the 40, 45-minute marks of each hour. So we're going to have 6 total breaks, most likely. There may be some days where I get on a roll and we only have, let's say, 4 or 5 breaks or what have you. But for the most part, we're going to have those 6 breaks, which is still giving you guys, I did the math. It's still giving you 2.5 hours of nonstop content versus an hour and 45 minutes of content is what you guys had previously. But again, continue to submit those questions, guys, in the YouTube chat box. You can also text us 843-790-3377, or please call that number. And again, leave your thoughts. If you cannot call in the 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock hour, you're more than welcome to call us, leave a voicemail, and we will take those questions, those comments, and those calls in the third hour. But until then, let's keep the conversation going, because I want to get to this. Again, sticking with the Yardcocks and what happened over the weekend. The big storyline, or one of the big storylines going into Arkansas weekend, was the starting rotation and the production or lack thereof you've gotten from those 3 gentlemen over the last couple of weekends, right? Auburn and Kentucky, Will Sanders, Jack Mahoney, and Matthew Becker had been bad. And I think that's just putting it kindly, and that's putting it bluntly. Like, they had not lived up to expectations. Jack Mahoney bounces back in a huge way. Of course, he was our MVP of the weekend. And Matthew Becker, I thought, was really, really solid for yesterday in a Sunday game. The big storyline or big piece of news that came out ahead of the weekend, Will Sanders with the lower body injury out for the weekend. He did not pitch, of course, all weekend long. What is the status of Will Sanders now moving forward? We do not know. But, guys, here's my thing. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters what the status of Will Sanders is, what his health is. Is he able to go this weekend? I don't think it matters. Because in my opinion, guys, Eli Jones has earned that game 1 starter role. And I think it will be a mistake to start anyone other than Eli Jones in game 1 against Tennessee. And if he does well there, I'd say beyond that as well. Guys, you look at the numbers for Eli Jones in his 2 SEC starts, and I'll be honest with you, after his first one, I'm surprised it took this long to give him another start on the weekend. He's had 2 SEC starts this season. The first one coming at Dudy Noble against Mississippi State. And guys, I don't care how good or bad Mississippi State is in baseball. Dudy Noble is one of the most intimidating atmospheres in all of college baseball. It is a tough place, especially to get your first SEC start. It's a very intimidating atmosphere, and Bulldogs fans are some of the most passionate in the SEC, if not the entire country. All Eli Jones did, number one, most importantly, he showed moxie, he showed composure, he showed great stuff that we had seen before out of the bullpen and in midweek games. But the numbers looked like this: 4 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. Very efficient, 53 pitches in 4 innings. I think obviously because he was asked on short rest, and that was his first start in an SEC game. They didn't want to overuse him. James Hicks relieved in that one, followed by Chris Veach. followed by Cade Austin. So a successful first SEC start. And guys, you might recall the pressure on that one. Will Sanders was getting the weekend off to figure out whatever the heck was going on with him. And Eli Jones is just thrust in that role, and he delivered. Fast forward to this past weekend. Game 1. Eli Jones is called on yet again. And I don't know at what point he found out during the week, but heck, we didn't find out till Thursday that Will Sanders, undisclosed lower body injury, and it sounds like he was going to work out of the bullpen anyways, just because change something up for the sake of changing something up after your starting rotation had been so porous against Auburn and Kentucky. So Eli Jones thrust back in this position yet again. All he does is turn in a 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, 2 walks, 10 strikeout performance against the 3rd-ranked Arkansas Razorbacks at Baum Walker Stadium. Guys, do I really need to say more? You know, I've been a Will Sanders defender practically all season. I like Will Sanders a lot. Glad he's a Gamecock. And when he's at his best, you know, I think he's got the potential to be one of the best in the SEC. He's got the stuff. He's got the build. There's a reason why this guy was projected by and thought by so many to be a future first rounder in the MLB draft. But it just hasn't clicked. 4-3 overall, a 5.75 ERA, coming in 56 and a third innings pitched, 66 strikeouts, 24 walks, hitters hitting .252 against him. And we've seen it all year. Outside of the Florida game and the first 3 innings against LSU, 2 ball games, Will Sanders has been, I think, pedestrians putting it kindly. I really do. And so I'm not saying give up on Will Sanders completely. He's got a role in this ball club. But I think moving forward, it cannot be in that game 1 starter role. It just can't. It just can't. He hasn't earned that role. He hasn't pitched well enough at hardly any point for me to feel confident moving forward that, okay, we get in a postseason play and we're in a super regional in game 1, we throw him out there. He's going to give us the kind of performance we need to get out ahead of things. I mean, you can't play down 0-1 every weekend. And the only reason his record's not worse, to be honest with you, is because a lot of his starts, he's gotten incredible run support. How many ball games on a Friday night, even though the Gamecocks lost that game 1 against Arkansas? Good ball game, 4-1, low-scoring game. I mean, you got the kind of performance from your starting pitcher. Eli Jones came out, it was 2-1, and it was actually 1-1, I believe. It was 1-0, excuse me. It was 1-0. And then Cade Austin gave up the base knock. Actually, excuse me, it was 1-1. I apologize. It was 1-1. Anyways, bottom of the 7th, Cade Austin gave up the base knock, which drove in Eli Jones' run. So he himself actually only gave up 1 earned run. The point I'm getting to is this. From what you've seen from Eli Jones, right? Jack Mahoney got off the schneid this past weekend. Matthew Becker got off the schneid. I thought he threw it well. Based off what we've seen, what tells you that Will Sanders should just return back to that role? Again, I'm not saying just throw it in on this guy and he has no place on this team. But I would most certainly, when he gets healthy, if it's this weekend, bring him out of the bullpen. Change up his role. Because obviously giving him a week off or whatever it was, that didn't work. That didn't do anything. And we talked about it, guys, in the preseason. And unfortunately, what I thought is coming to fruition. And this isn't a knock on Will Sanders. He's a good kid. But, guys, we're here to talk ball and what's going on the field. That's what we care about. And I think when you watch Will Sanders and what we spoke on in the preseason was this, he's got all the tools, he's got the build, he's got everything. It's all right here. It's all mental. And the next step in his evolution as a baseball player, as an elite frontline starter, was the mental side. You know, you hear all the time about that guy's got the mentality of a closer. Well, to be a frontline guy in the SEC, I mean, like, do you actually think to be a number one starter in the MLB, do you not think you have to have a different mindset? You have to. You have to. To be a big leaguer, to be a professional baseball player, to be a number one in the SEC, you got to master the mental side. Everybody in the SEC throws hard. Everybody in the SEC has nasty stuff. So what separates these guys, man? It's mental. A lot of it is mental. And Will Sanders has just been searching. He's been soul searching all year. He's looked lost all season. Then you look at a guy like Eli Jones. Maybe his stuff isn't as good, although I'd argue, I mean, the run on the fastball was fantastic. The breaking ball was good. I like the change, moving it around. I mean, but the biggest thing with Eli Jones was the moxie, the mindset, attacking Arkansas. At no point have I watched him pitch in those two SEC games. Did he look like the moment was too big? Did he look fazed by the competition or the road atmosphere? And so you're telling me he can do that on the road? I say give him the ball on Thursday night. I want to see what he can do at Founders Park, backed by the home crowd. I want to see it. To me, it's a no-brainer that Eli Jones should get the start in game one. It is a absolute no-brainer. And it's not even a knock on Will Sanders as much as it is just credit Eli Jones, because had Jones not pitched well, you say, okay, we can't get Will Sanders back soon enough. But like now you have another viable option. You've got an option who has proven he's done it against the best competition. And Will Sanders, you talk about inconsistent, man. I mean, that doesn't even begin to describe it. It doesn't even begin to describe it. So I like Eli Jones in game one this week. And I think Will Sanders can still be a big part of this ball club, but it should be out of the bullpen. It shouldn't be as the game one starter right now. It should be out of the bullpen until he can find himself, because we keep waiting and we keep waiting and we keep waiting. Is Will Sanders going to find it? Is this the start? Every week, one of the top storylines, man, big start for Will Sanders, big start for Will Sanders. Maybe he just ain't got it this year. I mean, and the fact of the matter is he doesn't, because we're at the end of the year. There ain't no more year to find it. You ain't got it. And I just highly doubt all of a sudden that light bulb's going to click on. And I'd love to be proven wrong, but you got a guy in Eli Jones who's earned an opportunity. I think he's earned the spot. I think he deserves to get the baseball in game one against Tennessee. Moving forward, guys, again, appreciate you all tuning in. 12:37 here on a Monday, Electric Monday, May the 15th, a little bit of a therapy Monday, if you will. I want to shift the conversation to this. As I talked about earlier, Mark Kingston, right? Mark Kingston. The expectations for he and South Carolina baseball. And I feel like we were all on the same page. I do. I feel like we were all on the same page in the preseason, that it was super regionals or bust. Again, you had a few out there who said, no, we got to get to Omaha. All right. And then you had a few out there, very few, who said, you know what, as long as we make the postseason, we're building. Right. What I think's so interesting, though, is this. Just a couple of weeks ago, what's wild, just a couple of weeks ago, folks on social media, a lot of folks in the Big Cock Club Discord were telling me, Chris, you know what? When we were sitting 34-6, I think Mark Kingston has built up enough goodwill, and he's done enough. This season's been so magical to where he gets a pass no matter what going to next season. And I just remember hearing that and thinking to myself, you know, it's easy to say that when you're winning, right? Much more difficult if you go into a slump, and wouldn't you know it? The Gamecocks are in a slump. And wouldn't you know it? Those folks who were saying that a couple of weeks ago have changed their tune. You know, the tweet I put out on Friday after the game, it wasn't meant to be like I'm calling for Kingston's job, but I like to point out things that have irony. There's a lot of irony on social media. And so something I found really ironic was this. The same people who were calling me a jackass, calling me a dumbass last year, or the really, truly, actually, excuse me, the people who were calling me a dumbass for calling for Kingston's job last year, they were talking crap about me or to me at the beginning of this season as the season went out. You were crazy for calling for Kingston's job. And guys, all throughout the year, listen, I've given praise and credit to Mark Kingston. And I'm not sitting here on this Monday calling for Mark Kingston's job. But the irony that those same folks who were ragging me for having a take late in the season last year, by the way, the season was over at that point, right? When I finally broke and called for Mark Kingston's firing. But those same people who were giving me hell weeks ago, they're the same people on social media calling for Mark Kingston's job. It's like the movie Batman, that line, right? When he says you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like, that's what it feels like. You know what I mean? Anyways, my question is this. We set out the expectation in the preseason for super regionals or bust for Mark Kingston. And my question is, do those expectations still apply? Or have fans now moved in this mindset of, oh, it's Omaha or bust? We don't get to Omaha, he's gone. And I think it's an interesting conversation to have because, again, in the preseason, super regionals or bust. Super regionals, if you'd have asked me, Chris, will you take it? I'd have said, hell yeah. Great year. Gave yourself a chance to get to Omaha. That's a great season. I think what makes it tougher, though, is you look at how this season has gone, right? How this season has gone, the way you started, the heights you reached in the rankings, just notoriety across college baseball. And as we all know, guys, it's about how you finish, not how you start. But because of your start, I think many folks, again, the expectations shifted. And so if Mark Kingston doesn't reach Omaha with this ball club, with the pieces you have in place, should less than Omaha, Nebraska be a reason to call for his firing? Some people would say yes. Some people would say it'd be coaching malpractice to not get there with this group. And I'll be honest with you, based off what we saw early in the season, I'll listen to the conversation. I'm not going to say I agree with you, but I'll listen. I'll listen. Because the way you were playing just a couple of weeks ago and where you were sitting, top 3 in the country, this team doesn't host a super, loses in a super, especially if you just go 2-Q in a super. That's going to be tough. I mean, that's going to be really tough. And unfortunately, the 2023 season, there's potential it could be remembered for the collapse, not for a lot of the great things you did throughout. Are the super regionals still enough to keep Mark Kingston in Columbia? That's really my question. For me, I still say yes. The goal in the preseason was super regionals or bust. I know that, I'll talk to Mark Ryan on radio later today, and he'll come on the show, and I know there'll be hardos out there that'll say, Chris, you got to demand Omaha. And I get that. But it's hard to make it to Omaha. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, you start firing coaches that get to super regionals, you start firing those coaches, who's going to take the job? Because you're going to label the job as damn near impossible. And that's not even really my feeling. I know that's the feeling in the building. At the University of South Carolina, you're going to have a hard time finding someone who wants to take on the challenge. I mean, look at Chad Holbrook. He averaged 40 wins per year and couldn't keep his job here. And guess what? And I know many will scoff. Their opinions don't matter, you'll say, but this job and this program, this job specifically was labeled in a negative light by D1 baseball guys, by national pundits, because they felt like these fans' goals and expectations are unrealistic. So I think it's still, listen, it's super regionals or bust. Losing in a regional is not going to be good enough. The 3 scenarios I presented in preseason, miss the postseason, he should be gone. That's not happening. Go on the road as a 2 seed and lose, should be gone, no question. And maybe the most damning, if you can't get out of your own regional at home at Founders Park, he should be gone. All 3 of those stand. All 3 of those scenarios, those situations, you can't get out of your own regional. He ought to be gone. I don't care what's happened this season. You could have won 50 games. It wouldn't have mattered to me because, as we all know at Carolina, you're judged off what happens in the postseason. Regular season's all cool and everything, but it's just to set you up for a postseason run. That's it. You get to the Supers, I think he's safe. I still think he's safe. I really do. And I will commend and tip my cap and say Mark Kingston has earned his way back. I think that'll be earning the way back. But I think for some, the expectations have shifted a little bit. And I think some have turned to, you know what, with this group of guys, we don't get to Omaha. We didn't maximize our potential. We didn't maximize the talent that we have. And I can't even really say I blame you. I'll listen to the conversation. Again, I may not totally agree, but I hear you. I hear what you have to say, and it does feel like certainly it'll be a missed opportunity with one of the best ball clubs you've had in quite some time. Guys, let's jump into another quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation going. In the meantime, guys, leave us your questions, comments, calls. 843-790-3377. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back. Appreciate you all tuning in, and thank you all so much for your love and support all weekend long. By the way, I wanted to say the live stream watch-alongs, a huge success yet again, but I will say after the weekend, I've decided we are going to make an adjustment, if you will, and sort of pivot when it comes to my philosophy on live stream watch-alongs. And I think this is something that even, taking it into the football season, like a change for the rest of time. And of course, as I always say, I've got the freedom to change my mind. I kind of go back and forth sometimes, things like to just try out different things. The live stream watch-alongs were a blast. But here's what I'm thinking moving forward. I think it is more valuable to use the live stream watch-alongs as a value add to the Big Cock Club and the Big Cock Club Discord, because in the Big Cock Club Discord, the hangout that we do, we can actually watch the games together and conversate and talk and hear out each other while having the game pulled up. So I think that's probably what we'll do moving forward. I've mentioned for football season, the post-game call-in shows that will 110% be happening. That may be something I actually put into place, and I think I will put into place for this baseball postseason. I think it'd be really cool to take questions, comments, calls, all that good stuff. I know there'd be a lot of interest, a lot of reaction to games and to what goes on with the Yardcocks. So I think that'll be the move going forward. I will not be streaming, all my Big Cock Club members who are listening, I will not be streaming the midweek game tomorrow night. In the Discord, we are celebrating some things, some new beginnings, new job opportunities, whatever. Not for me, but celebrating some things with my lady. So we'll be out and about. Will not be streaming that game. And this weekend against Tennessee, I'm not exactly sure. At least one of the games we will. Yours truly might be at one of the games. And then Saturday, I know for sure we will not stream the game or be at the game. But the postseason, the SEC tournament, the regional supers, all that good stuff before, we will stream. The plan will be to stream all of those games in the Big Cock Club Discord. Going to be a lot of fun. Again, I'll post the links. I'll post everything you need to know moving forward. All right, guys. Hey, we got Mark Rogers upcoming. We got Mark Rogers, and a good point by Brendan M in the Big Cock Club Discord. He says, you streamed it last week, and we saw how that turned out. Indeed. Yeah. Yeah, we streamed it last week, and of course the Gamecocks lost to North Florida. So maybe streaming a midweek, maybe streaming a Tuesday is not the best idea. I don't know. Either way, guys, we got Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, upcoming at 1:15 or so. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to run through this really quickly. I know I posted this about a month ago, but I did not really go into detail and talk about it on the Daily Crow. So I want to get in this. My top 10 Gamecocks on the gridiron, we're moving from baseball to football, my top 10 Gamecocks heading into the 2023 football season. Now, should we go 10-1? Should we go 1-10? Let's go 10-1. Let's go 10-1. Again, these are my top 10 Gamecocks, my top 10 players heading into the 2023 football season. I know there will be a lot of debate here, which is great. There'll be a lot of debate. There's a lot of guys you could put in this top 10. Obviously, this could also change with the transfer portal. Where does a guy like Jatius Gear, where does he figure in? Spoiler, he's not on this list. Here they are. My top 10 Gamecocks. So as of right now, heading in the 2023 football season, number 10 for me, and I know a lot of folks said he should be higher, but this one for me, you got to include him because of what he did a season ago, how valuable he was for the Gamecocks, right? The amount of big plays. And we talk about Beamer ball and how big of a factor it was last year, how big of a factor we expect it to be yet again this season. Kai Kroger comes in at number 10 for me. And again, you could argue he should be higher. When you really think about the factor he played in last season, it was tough for me to slot him like top 5 or anything above 10 just because there's other guys on this list that score touchdowns, that create turnovers, that make big plays. But to be fair, Kai Kroger, I think he threw a couple last year, right? He threw one in the bowl game, I think it was also. So Kai Kroger, a dude that when he's not doing that even, one of the best, if not, I think probably the best punter in the SEC, flips the field. He's a weapon in that way. And also, guys, he should have won the holder of the year multiple times. I know Shane Beamer has griped about that. But his work on special teams as a holder is something that should not be undervalued. And you think about Mitch Jeter last year, right? Went 11 for 11 on field goals. I mean, Kai Kroger and the continuity of that special teams group is a big reason why. So number 10 for me in my top 10 Gamecocks heading into the 2023 season, number 10, punter Kai Kroger. And number 9, I've got Dakereon Joyner, the Swiss Army knife, do-it-all playmaker. Is Dak Joyner set up for his best career season in Garnet and Black? And I think the bigger question is this: what position is it going to come at? Does he play more running back? Is he RB1, God forbid? Does he play more wide receiver? Do we see some more wrinkles at the Wildcat spot? How does Dowell Loggins use Dakereon Joyner? Did not have to come back for the season, decided to. I think we'd all agree was the right decision, a decision that all of Gamecock Nation loved to see. But Dakereon Joyner, a guy that there's been, I feel like with Dak, we go through this same song and dance every year where we spend a lot of the preseason, a lot of the offseason talking about the things Dakereon Joyner is capable of doing. I mean, last year, obviously, at this time, it was on steroids because we were coming off the Mayo Bowl, and, folks thought maybe he can push Spencer Rattler for QB1, or, he could do this or do that. And it just feels like the chatter always outweighs, and it's not his fault, by the way. I want to make this very clear, but it always just feels like the chatter outweighs the amount of opportunities that he actually gets. We spend all this time talking about him and the different ways he can hit a defense, and he can catch it, he can throw it, he can run with it. And for whatever reason, and you can blame Marcus Satterfield or blame whatever, he didn't get the touches last year. I mean, had a couple of big plays. I think he had a rushing touchdown in that Tennessee game. He had the big catch in the Florida game on special teams, which was the one score of that game. Had the big play against Vanderbilt. But, had the big play also. I think he had a big pass in the Notre Dame bowl game. But, his action has been limited. I mean, I think that's fair to say. But as I've mentioned before, while he may not be a true quarterback or a true wide receiver or even a true running back, he's got a skill set that's undeniable that can help the Gamecocks win games this year. And for that reason, and also just the fact that he is a guy reinforces strongly the culture that Shane Beamer has built and is building, right? And is going to be someone that has a positive impact on this Gamecocks football program. Dakereon Joyner, I think, could be in for his best season yet, and he's number 9 on my top 10 Gamecocks heading into 2023. Okay, so this one hurts because I made this list a couple of weeks ago, just before, I think, the spring game. And I have not updated it. But number 8 for me, number 8 was Jalen Nichols, your starting left tackle, who now looks like he is out for the year. So now you understand why the perspective of why that's such a big loss. Guys, I look at this list. There's only one offensive lineman in my top 10. It was Jalen Nichols. So he will not be playing this year, or at least the majority of this year, it sounds like. Who steps up and who fills in. If I had to pick a different number 8, I'd probably go with Jatius Gear, the transfer from Syracuse, 3.5 sacks last year. I think he's an immediate day one starter. And we'll just put him in here since I think Jalen Nichols, again, we all know the situation. But just to give you perspective on why his loss is such a big deal, he was number 8 on my top 10 Gamecocks entering this fall. We'll put Jatius Gear, though, in this spot to fill that void. Again, a great player at Syracuse, and Anderson, South Carolina native, went to, Belton Honeypath High School. I hope I'm saying that right. Belton Honeypath High School. Jatius Gear, a big-time pickup at a position of need for Shane Beer and company, should be an instant impact player across or opposite from Jordan Strawn at that edge spot. Number 7, my top 10 Gamecocks entering this season. Number 7 for me, Shane Beamer said it best. I think it was last week when he said, the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh. And we've seen it take. Jaheim Bell to FSU, Marshawn Lloyd to Southern Cal, Jordan Birch to Oregon. But the transfer portal also gaveth, and it gaveth in the form of Trey Knox, the former Arkansas tight end. And we all saw him in the spring game and what he did, guys. I think this will be one of Spencer Rattler's favorite targets this season. I think you're going to see them connect a lot. And I said it after the spring game, and I'll say it yet again. And it's all due respect to Stog. But I think Trey Knox is going to be what Gamecock Nation hoped and thought Austin Stogner was going to be, right? Because I don't think Stog ever really lived up to the hype that was set out for him. So Trey Knox, I think, he's a guy that's got a lot of potential, hasn't really lived up to it. If you go look at his career numbers, I don't think he's ever had a season in which he had over, 400 receiving yards, something like that. The numbers have been very pedestrian. And get this, guys, Trey Knox has not caught a touchdown against a Power 5 opponent since October of 2021. So it's been quite a while. Maybe a change of scenery will revitalize his career. He's got his position coach in Dowell Loggins calling the plays. So they're going to make him a priority in this offense. And also with another guy on the outside we'll get into in just a bit, should open up the field and open up some big things for Trey Knox. I think especially going to be a big-time target for the Gamecocks on third down. And also, guys, what he can do in the run blocking game. I think he's a guy with his size can help you there for sure with run blocking, with pass protection if you need him, but certainly going to be one of the top targets for Spencer Rattler this season. Coming in at number 6, my top 10 Gamecocks into the year. Number 6 for me, we move to the defensive front. I think one of the leaders on this defensive line, I'm going with Alex Huntley. I like Alex Huntley, Boogie Huntley's game. I think he's been a solid player his first couple of years on campus. Has he been overshadowed some by the Zach Pickens of the world and the Tonka Hemingways? Absolutely. Which, by the way, guys, I understand you could have put Tonka Hemingway in this slot, no doubt. I will not argue that a ton, but I'm going with Alex Huntley. I think Alex Huntley, a guy, again, the numbers have been pedestrian, has just been sort of a role player. I think he slides into that starter role. I think Alex Boogie Huntley is ready to explode as a big-time impact guy on the inside, and certainly they're going to need him. Who's going to fill the role? Who's going to fill the void of the departed Zach Pickens, right? Who's going to fill that role? Alex Huntley, I think, could be a guy. Tonka Hemingway, opposite of him. That is a really, really nice one, too. And you got some other, we saw Elijah Davis in the spring game, and what he did was fantastic. I think Boogie Huntley is going to play a major, major role on the inside and helping shore up that run defense. Let's get into our top 5 at number 5. The running back position. It's a mystery, right? We're all pursuing Logan Diggs. Hopefully Diggs is the guy that can come in and carry the load. But in the meantime, the player that stands out to me, and sort of like DeKevion Joyner, where he is sort of this Swiss Army knife type of player, I think can hurt you in a multitude of ways. Number 5 for me, Juju McDowell. I like Juju's game a lot as well, and I think Juju can be a big part of what this offense does. Is he a bell cow running back, going to carry the football 20, 25 times? No. I don't see him as that type of player. But you look at what he did the last 2 seasons, actually had a little bit of a drop-off in his production last year. I think getting Juju McDowell more on the outside, using him more in the passing game and the quick passing game, the screen game, what have you, getting creative. I mean, he's just another athlete, right? We talk about guys that can help you. He's another athlete on the offensive side. So don't ask him to do things he's not capable of doing. For example, power up the gut. That's not Juju McDowell's game. You get him on the outside, you get him in space, he can really hurt a defense. And I also think, guys, he showed last year he's a solid pass catcher out of the backfield as well. So number 5 for me, big playmaker on the offensive side, Juju McDowell. Number 4 for me in my top 10 Gamecocks sitting in the 2023 season, I'm going with edge Jordan Strawn. And I think this is a dude that's going to be a candidate when the season's in, when it's all said and done, to be one of your top impact players. And what I really mean is top bounce back players from the 2022 season. Obviously suffered the injury in game one that unfortunately ended his year. And, I think it really hurt this Gamecocks defense, and also the injury of Mo Kaba, who could have easily made this top 10 list, by the way. But Jordan Strawn, a guy off the edge, guys, don't forget it was just a couple of years ago that Georgia State that he led FBS in sacks. This is a dude who knows how to get after the quarterback. And this is somebody, I think, off the edge at that spot. We talked about going into last year. All the attention was around Jordan Birch and what he could do. I mean, many of us were saying it. Hey, Jordan Strawn's going to lead this team in sacks. And he would have had he stayed healthy. I think he returns back to form. Shane, we were saying last week he's going to be 100% healthy. Jordan Strawn, poised for a big year. He is number 4 on my top 10 Gamecocks. Number 3 on this list. What a freshman season he had. What a freshman season. I think he's primed for an all-conference type of year yet again. Nick Emanwari at the back end of that defense. We talk about great Gamecock safeties. Emmanuel Cook, DJ Swearinger, the list goes on and on. DBU, if you will, in Columbia. Nick Emanwari is the latest in a long line of big-time Gamecocks defensive backs. He showed a willingness to come up and pop somebody in the run game, showed great instincts at the safety position. And, guys, he's only going to get better as he grows, as he matures. I think the jump he's going to make from his freshman to his sophomore campaign is going to be really, really special. And we're talking about a guy in Nick Emanwari. I will be really, really surprised if he's not on the all-SEC team somewhere. Might not be first team, but if he's not an all-conference player at season's end, I will be fairly shocked. Nick Emanwari, I think the leader of this Gamecocks defense on the back end and one of the best defenders in the SEC. Number 2, now this is where it gets really interesting, 2 and 1. I know many of you are sitting there, Chris, there's only a couple guys left. We know who they are. Number 2 of my top 10 Gamecocks heading in the season, quarterback Spencer Rattler. I'm going with Rattler at 2, Juice Wells at number 1. Here's why. Just as overall players, Spencer Rattler, what he did in the final 2 games last year, he showed his true ceiling. The question is, will the floor be higher this year? Because the floor was abysmally low. Abysmally low. And that'll be the job of Dowell Loggins. How much of that was the Marcus Satterfield effect? How much addition is there by the subtraction of Sat no longer calling the plays? So I think Spencer Rattler, one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, truly might be, you could argue, the best quarterback in the SEC East going into this season. But Juice Wells, for me, guys, separates himself at number 1. Just because I think one of the best receivers in the SEC, if not the entire country. And I give the nod to Juice Wells just because of, I think he's a 1,000-yard receiver this year. I think he's got that type of potential. And we're splitting hairs, but overall as a player, I think Juice Wells is the top Gamecock heading in the season. Spencer Rattler just behind him in that 2 spot. But, of course, both will feed off of each other, and both are primed for big 2023 campaigns. So, guys, what are your thoughts? Top 10 Gamecocks heading in the 2023 season. That is my list. Again, number 1, Juice Wells. 2, Spencer Rattler. 3, Nick Emanwari. 4, Jordan Strawn. 5, Juju McDowell. 6, Alex Huntley. 7, Trey Knox. 8, Jalen Nichols. 9, De'Carrion Joyner. And 10, Kai Kroger. Let us know your thoughts at 843-790-3377. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break because on the other side, we got my good friend Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. He will join us just on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back Monday, May the 15th, 2023. 2023. I know, by the way, Brendan M. has told me and informed me the countdown video still has the Daily Crow graphic noon to 2 versus noon to 3. Yes, Brendan, I'm aware. And I'm also here to tell you that you may see that countdown graphic not change because here's the thing. I was able to change the graphic on my own end pretty easily. I did not create that video countdown. So I don't know if I'll be able to edit it. I'm going to try. I cannot make any promises. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm able to do it. And guys, we're waiting right now on Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. He should be joining us here in just a second. Not exactly sure where Mark Rogers is, but that's okay. That's okay. We're patient. How about Georgia, by the way? Georgia picking up the number 1 quarterback in, I believe, the 2024 cycle, right? Yeah, number 1 player, by the way, in the 2024 class, 5-star quarterback Dylan Raiola. 6'3", 220 pounds out of Phoenix, Arizona. He chose Georgia over Southern Cal, Nebraska, and apparently was committed at one time to Marcus Satterfield in Nebraska. So you wonder what type of kid he is. I don't know. Ruben Nation said, but Gunnar Stockton regrets going to Georgia, going to sit behind Carson. And now the number 1 quarterback in the upcoming class is going to Georgia. Again, guys, we're getting Mark Rogers on here in just a second. Not sure where Mark Rogers is right now, but we're going to get him on here in the next few minutes. Let's see. John Edwards says Gunnar Stockton is never going to play. You might be right. He might be. He's definitely a portal candidate. There is no doubt. He's definitely a portal candidate. Guys, Brett McMurphy projecting the Gamecocks is, I don't know if you want to call them way too early or just post-spring or heading into the offseason bowl projections, but his latest bowl projections, he's got the Gamecocks taking on Kansas in the Gasparilla Bowl. I'm not sure how thrilled folks would be for that. Not sure how thrilled they'd actually be for that. So, anyways, guys, be sure to submit your questions, 843-790-3377. Maybe some of you are waiting on the third hour to call in. If you are, guys, I hope so, because it's going to be a wide open free-for-all in that third hour. Let's see. I think Mark Rogers is having some technical issues. Oh, that's right. My mistake. Mark Rogers gets the link via email. There we go. Boom. Okay. I texted the link to Mark Rogers. I texted the link, but he gets it via email. So that's my mistake. That's my bad. Anyways, John Ever, can you ask Mark about the report about Oregon, Washington, the Big Ten? Saw it over the weekend. So again, we should be getting Mark here in the next minute or so. I got to remember that. Most people I send the text to, most people I just text the link. Mark Rogers, I forgot we email the link. So, again, we are waiting on Mark to jump in. Guys, the question I posed on social media, by the way, this is the final week, of course, of the 2023 regular season for baseball. What do you need to see with the Final Four contest to make you feel good about the Yardcocks' chances heading into the postseason? Is there anything in particular that you want to see? Again, guys, we're going to get Mark Rogers, the voice of college ball, here on in just a second. I'm going to let him get situated really quickly. But again, let me know in the comments. Again, the whole third hour, we'll be taking your questions, your comments, your calls. A pivotal week for the Yardcocks. A pivotal week. I mean, I would say 4-0, not out of the question. I think you need to go at minimum 3-1 to feel good about going into the postseason. All right, looks like he's ready. We're going to go ahead and kick it over after I finally figured out. Again, I text most people the links to TDC to jump in. I forgot email. See, email. Mark, email Rogers. That's it. Somebody's given the nickname. I love that. All right, let's go ahead and get him in. Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, joins us. Mark, what's going on, my friend? Again, my apologies. I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, where is Mark at? And I realized, oh, yeah, email for Mark Rogers, not text. So that's my bad. Hey, I appreciate it, though, my man. I appreciate you taking the time. What's going on?
Well, Chris, I feel you because I go through the same thing you do as the host. And, certain people want email, certain people want DMs in the Twitter, certain people want text. And I do that all the time, too. Like, oh, I forget, that guy, I need to do it this way. Yeah, do it all the time myself.
For sure. Anyway, so again, Mark, I appreciate you taking the time. Glad we got that sorted out. I wanted to go ahead and get this question, by the way, for you from one of our listeners. He says, John Edward asks, can you ask Mark about the report about Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten? Saw the report of the weekend. So just realignment, Mark Rogers, in college football, your thoughts, and what's the latest on the Big Ten's expansion, as I assume they try to keep up with the SEC?
Yeah, so I have long said my thoughts about expansion and what's going to move expansion with those two conferences driving the sport would be one of two things. Either the SEC or the Big Ten looking at the available schools and thinking and evaluating to say that school, or usually it's those pairs of schools, that pair of schools will add value to the conference. And that could mean, for me, one of two things. That could mean just a straight financial determination that, hey, we went to Fox, CBS, NBC, whomever our TV partners are, ESPN, and we served up School A and School B, and they came back and said, we will add X number of dollars to the contract. We figured out the distribution and said, hey, if we add these two schools, they're going to add $12 million per year to each school within the entire conference. So, hey, this is a financial win. We will do it. But I also think that there's a consideration made to, you know what? Our TV partners are coming back and they're only going to budge this many dollars. But we know that long term, that these brands, these programs, their recruiting footprint, their TV market size, all of that is going to bring in money. And we can convince our member schools that they can take a $2 million hit on their TV contract per season for the value of these schools and these football brands long term. So I think that's one way in which the Big Ten and or the SEC is going to expand, by simply surveying the field, because everybody wants to join those two conferences. That's all there is to it. Everybody left in college football would join either one of those two or either one of those conferences. Yes. Then the second thought is that, just like we saw last summer with the Big Ten moving on USC, UCLA, encountering the Oklahoma, Texas move by the SEC, that even if it doesn't make complete financial sense, if there's this tit for tat, punch, counter punch, that the other will respond to say, if I'm the Big Ten and the SEC goes and grabs Clemson, Florida State, Miami, well, we need to do something about that. We can't get behind, even if our schools are going to take a $3 million per season hit in TV revenue. We need to keep up. So I think those are the two things that are going to drive this further, in particular to the Washington, Oregon situation. So Brett McMurphy reported over the weekend that in his language, it was simply that the Big Ten has vetted and cleared Washington and Oregon. Well, a lot of people take that as, Oh, wow. They vetted and cleared. They're in. They're going after them. Well, we already know that Washington and Oregon applied for Big Ten membership last fall, off the heels of USC and UCLA. So they have wanted this for quite some time. I believe, and we both know that anytime a reporter, and Brett McMurphy's credible, I'm not in any way questioning his credibility. It's more about if they get a thread of information that nobody else has, that thread of information may not result in anything, but it's still truth. They got vetted and cleared. When I was at my former employer, we would vet and clear all sorts of people for a job application. That doesn't mean we were going to hire them. That just meant like, we got 15 applications for this job. Well, it was more like 60 applications. Well, shoot, it's more like 600 applications for this job. We vetted and cleared and did background checks and HR and so forth on this many, and 92% of them cleared, but we're still in the hiring process. So the way I read into that is not, that's just the next step in the process, but not necessarily that this means the Big Ten is going after Washington and Oregon.
Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, joins us every single Monday. And of course, Mark, as you can tell from the first question, and we got a long way to go before kickoff, and we really get into the point where we're talking about the 2023 season. So we're not just going to be talking Gamecocks on this show, which I know is totally fine with you. Like, I want to use you as a resource to talk college football on a national landscape, SEC landscape, which, again, I know you're cool with. So I want to ask you this. This just happened. The Georgia Bulldogs pick up a commitment from Dylan Raiola, the number one player in the 2024 class at the quarterback position. And I'm already seeing people on social media talking about, think about what Kirby Smart did with a walk-on at quarterback. And now he's getting the number one player in the country. Where I'm going with this is this, as a, dare I say, frustrated Gamecock fan, right? Because everybody's chasing Georgia. Everybody is trying to swing up, right? I mean, the pressure to win is on. But, Mark, it's just hard for me to fathom an instance where we're going to get to a point where Georgia's no longer the big dog, no pun intended, in the SEC East or the SEC. But to be fair, nobody ever sees the downfall coming, right? I'm sure Tennessee and Florida State in the 90s, Nebraska in the 90s, like if you'd have told them, hey, in 20 years, you're going to be irrelevant, like they would have never believed it, right? So nobody ever sees it coming. So my question is just this, I guess. Is there, if you're a Gamecock fan, if you're just a fan of a team that's not Georgia, is there an end in sight potentially, or is Georgia truly the new Alabama where you think this is going to be a dynasty that could last 10, 15, dare I say 20 years?
You're right, though. If you look at great traditional programs in the past that have fallen off, I'd even say within 5 years, like Nebraska went from winning national championships to being a fairly mediocre, decent program, 8-4 kind of program. Like this happened in 5 or 6 years. They went from dominance of 1997, 98 to 5 years later, they're just okay. They are, they're Arkansas or Ole Miss or somebody.
I mean, you
so
could, Mark, not to
quickly.
cut you off, you could, I mean, if they have another down year this year, you could start to throw Clemson in that discussion. Like they're not the same, 3 or 4, if you stack that 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden we might be having the same conversation about them in 5 years.
Yeah, Clemson is nowhere close to what they were in their prime 2015 to 20, even though the records have been nice and they've been able to, snatch up a lot of easy wins. Man, that team last year losing 3 touchdowns at Notre Dame, who wasn't a great team, and the South Carolina game, and we saw the bowl game, they're nowhere close to. And I'm not saying they can't rebound and they can't get it together, because they're still a really good program, but I think they're even further away from their peak than what their record is showing. Like they're in a bad conference, picking up a lot of easy wins. But in regards to Georgia, wow, what's got to be frustrating as well is that the Carson Becks and the Gunnar Stocktons, those guys stuck around when hardly anybody else in the country as a quarterback, as a 4 or 5 star, is sticking around waiting their turn. These guys stuck around and waited their turn. Like, I don't know what's going on there, but they stuck around. I can't think of another place where guys, Quinn Ewers gone, CJ Stroud's there, I'm gone. And we could fill in blank anywhere. and guys are leaving because they want to be the man. But those guys stuck around, and Carson Beck looks like he's in play. Now with Dylan Raiola, man, it's going to be a surprise if he doesn't come through and become a big-time quarterback. He had a commitment from Ohio State initially. When it was down to USC, Georgia, Nebraska, my thought was, well, Nebraska, he's got ties to Nebraska legacy. Man, if they get him, they could completely really turn around their program. That didn't come through because I think the business side of his better senses proved out because you just can't go to Nebraska. And when you've got opportunity to either go to Georgia, win national championships, especially when you saw them open up the offense the last couple of years and do everything that they've done, and you set yourself up, or go and play under Lincoln Riley, that offense, and just be in the next in line with Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, on down the line, be the next guy, Caleb Williams. So he finally made the business decision. But the thing about where Georgia is that you can't say about Tennessee when they were really good 20, 25 years ago and fell off, and Nebraska certainly is, they've got all those players. They got all those high school football players in that same vicinity, and Atlanta's producing more NFL players than anywhere, right there with Houston in terms of a major metropolitan area. So they've got that built-in advantage that really helps. And I know they're going anywhere and everywhere for players, but they can stay home and win.
Okay, beauty. I think for some reason we've lost Mark on the video side. Let's see. I'm going to try to kick Mark. We're going to get Mark Rogers back in here. Sorry about that, guys. Technology's great until it isn't. I think you guys saw Mark Rogers freeze up there for a second. We're going to get him back in. We're going to have him jump back in here. No biggie. We can clip that out. Anyways, great stuff from Mark. I want to get into his SEC power rankings because he dropped those just a couple of days ago when I watched. And I think you guys will be intrigued where he has the Gamecocks in his power rankings. So as we wait for Mark Rogers. Here we go. Okay. I think there he is. Yes. Mark, sorry about that. We lost you on the video side. You froze up. So I was like, let me try to refresh this, and then all hell broke loose. Technology's great until it isn't. My people normally just blame the Muschamp hackers. That's who we direct blame to. Either way, Mark, I think, again, well said on Georgia, what they're building. With that being said, speaking on the SEC, I want to talk about your SEC power rankings, which dropped just a couple of days ago. And I think Gamecock fans especially are going to be really excited to see where you have them. Number 5 in the SEC power rankings, your latest power rankings. Just talk about, if you want to go through, I don't know if you have it in front of you, if you want to go down your list, but why the Gamecocks in the 5 spot? It sounds like you're definitely high on South Carolina, at least at this point.
I'm high on South Carolina. I do my best to stay in the moment, review what happened in spring, what kind of indicators we got during the spring game, even though we both, vetted out a number of times, how meaningless it is. But I think you can gain a lot from what happened in the entirety of spring, as much as you can believe the reports and all of that. But then, additions, subtractions, looked at recruiting classes. I threw all that together in consideration. Didn't really I'm not looking at schedules yet, trying to say, okay, well, I'm looking at the quality of the team versus the schedule and trying to weigh that together. No, this is strictly a 1 through 14 ranking. I do think that the SEC, after Georgia's there, they are it until proven otherwise for me. I think Alabama and LSU, I'm really looking at who's could be that next team. For right now, I'm still leaning Alabama. I still think they have a better overall team and roster than LSU. The quarterback situation does concern me because I do not believe that Tyler Buckner is an exceptional quarterback. He is a drop off from the typical Alabama quarterback that we've seen during the Nick Saban era, especially the last 3 or 4. So they're going to be a different kind of Alabama team this year, winning in a different way. So Jaden Daniels, a big advantage for LSU over Alabama, I think. And then it gets very compact. So 5 is a good place to be. I get it, and feel good about that if you trust me at all. But understand 5 to 9 or 10. To me, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, even A&M, I expect to bounce back from A&M. South Carolina, uh, I still Kentucky with Devin Leary, a quarterback, should be formidable. Should be not an easy out. So there's like 6 or 7 teams that I think are really close.
I mean, I think you look, Mark, just speaking on it like the SEC. I mean, I think the only thing I feel good about right now, I'll put it in heavy black ink. Georgia at number 1, Vandy at 7. The rest of it, just shuffle it up, and I mean, you could almost convince me of any order of finish there, right? I mean, does Tennessee continue to be the number 2 team in the East? Do they fall off because Hendon Hooker and the pieces they lost at receiver? What is Florida? I mean, Mark, I saw a record prediction this morning for the Florida Gators: 2-10, 0-8 in SEC play. Now, the guy that picked it, he's a Tennessee fan. Does that factor in? Probably so. Either way, though, I saw 6-6 today for Vanderbilt. I've seen 6 wins from Vegas, from Caesars. I've seen people talk about 10 wins for the Gamecock. I mean, it's just all over the place, which makes it so much fun. Obviously, same thing in the West too, man. Like I look at last year, I felt like I picked 4 teams in the West to go 8-4. And I'm like, well, not everybody can go 8-4, but it feels like when you start talking about the Ole Misses, the Arkansas, the Auburns, even a Mississippi State, who I think might be getting slept on a little bit because of the late great Mike Leach and him no longer being there. And it's just what makes this league great, obviously, Mark, with the competitiveness. And I mean, it's really why you say any given Saturday. And it's what I talk about all the time, like the thing that makes Georgia and Alabama, and I'll throw LSU in there, maybe not so much, but those top tier teams different is like Georgia can play their C game because of the level of depth they have. They can play their C game on any given Saturday in the SEC and still win, right? Like I think we saw it last year when they played at Mizzou. A team like South Carolina can't get away with that, but a team like South Carolina, if they play their A game, their A+ game, they can beat anybody. And I mean, that's just what makes the league so much fun to watch on a week in, week out basis.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as 2-10 for Florida. I'm with you on the 1-7 spots to a certain extent. I'm not quite there to your level on the 1-7 because I do think that Mizzou and Florida will have issues. I do think that they're on the lower end of that spectrum. I have more faith in Tennessee, South Carolina, and Kentucky than I do those two. So I would be surprised if there's not a Georgia and then the 3 I just mentioned, then Mizzou and Florida kind of on that bottom end in front of Vandy.
If Vandy does not finish last on what your money, what does your money say? Who would it be will finish in that last place spot in the East?
Missouri. I'm tempted to say Florida, but I got to believe in that Florida. I just think they're a more talented roster. I'm gonna give them a slight edge on Mizzou. And you look at Eli Drinkwitz. This dude looks, anytime I see him at the podium, interviews, anything, radio show on the SEC network, any of that, he seems like a great guy. Like you'd love to hang with Eli Drinkwitz. Very nice guy, very fun, smart guy, but he's not doing anything different than Barry Odom was doing.
And they just gave him an extension, I do believe.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
And I tell you this, if Florida finishes dead last in the SEC East, you will be able to see the Flames in Gainesville from Columbia, South Carolina. And Billy Napier may not last into October, my friend, if that is the trajectory that they are on. Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. One last thing, Mark, before I get you out of here. I know, obviously, you've made a living in college football. You've talked to a lot of head coaches. Shane Beamer last week, he made an appearance on, I think, an Atlanta, Georgia radio station, and he said something I thought was interesting, but it doesn't really surprise me. They asked him about, being 24-point underdogs to Georgia early, and they asked, Coach, do you see that? Do you see the things people are saying? And Beamer paused, and he just kind of was like, yeah, it's something we mentioned. You've talked to a lot of coaches. How much do you feel like coaches use Vegas over-unders spreads, things like you and I say, how much do you think coaches use that as fuel for the teams? Because they love to tell us they block out all the outside noise, but that's not really the case, right? I mean, they're using it as fuel. Their guys know, especially in social media, the players see everything. So I guess nothing's really a secret anymore.
Yeah, so that is the one thing that's different than it was years ago, is that the head coaches have to be smart enough to know that the players see it anyway. So you're not hiding things from the players. It's not 1975 where you can think, okay, we can shield this and shield that and keep them away from this and that. That's just not the way it is. I had a meeting with the Mississippi State football team. Jackie Sherrill at the time, this was in the late 90s, had me speak to the Mississippi State football team. And it's so funny to think back on it now, because Jackie Sherrill, he got in trouble at Mississippi State. He got in trouble at Texas A&M. He got in trouble at Pitt. He was getting in trouble at every stop. He asked me to come in and talk to the team about how they should speak to the media, how they should address questions. And he basically told them before he let me speak that they're going to be out there carousing and doing crazy stuff, but just we can't let anybody find out about it, kind of thing. It was hilarious. And I'm like, what am I supposed to tell these guys now? But so, yeah, the coaches have to be smart enough. But like you say, they are part hypocrite. And I get it, where on one hand, they, we don't hear any of that. That's just a bunch of noise. But when they can use it in their favor, then it's fuel for the fire. Then we listen to it. Then we throw it at the team to say, hey, you're not being respected.
Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. Mark, always a pleasure. And I promise next week I will not forget to email you the link. Again, I appreciate it, man. I'm looking forward to doing this each and every single Monday. Going to be a blast. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks.
Hey, man, take care. Great stuff. Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. Guys, we are going to jump into a quick break, but here we go. The Power Hour, I think, might start a little bit early. I don't know. I didn't think about the 15 or so minutes that we would have before the 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock hour. So just stay tuned. And why not? We'll go ahead on the other side, guys. We'll go ahead and open up the phone lines if you guys want to get your calls in early. But go ahead. Keep your questions, comments coming. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on a Monday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle doggy ho. Mas eu tenho de hoe.
All right, guys, we're back taking your questions, your comments, your calls as well. The phone lines are officially open. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. I know I called it the Power Hour. We'll call it the Power, hour and 15 minutes or so. I mean, you think about it, though, 2 5-minute breaks, that takes away 10 minutes. It's about an hour after the breaks. But anyways, guys, this is your hour. This is your time sticking with, right, keeping the integrity of the Daily Crow and everything we're doing. I wanted to make sure we had time to get to your questions, your comments, your calls. So I'm going to go back and we'll scroll through. We're going to get in these questions. But, guys, first, let me say this. I value you guys' feedback greatly. You know, I make moves and I make decisions and I do different things in business that makes sense, that I believe makes sense, and I try different things. And I know it's only been one day and we're not even done yet, but I will tell you guys right now, I absolutely love this format. I love this new TDC format. I love that we get to hit on everything. I get to say my piece, hit on the topics I want to hit on. We get a guest, and we get to interact and take your questions, take your comments. I also love moving the show to YouTube. I think that makes a lot of sense for very obvious reasons. And so far, I'm loving it. But again, guys, of course, I always am welcome to your feedback. I'm always welcome to your thoughts. I've already got Luke RJ complaining about the break music. I got Brendan M complaining about the break graphics. So I love it, man. I love it. The fact that you guys care is what means most to me. So I'm going to start going through these questions, guys. Again, you're on YouTube. You can show love to the show through super chat, super stickers. If you want to support the business, support the content, support the channel, support everything we do. Also, join the Big Cock Club today. Patreon.com/Big Cock Club. The best Gamecocks community on the internet. Let's get into, again, your questions. I'm going all the way back to the beginning. Let's see. Bruin Nation says they're about to pass us and we'll still be sitting here debating on if he's the guy or not. I think if we lose in regionals after collapsing the way we did, we make the change. Bruin Nation, I agree with you 110%. Joseph says you can't get rid of Mark Kingston when you've got all the young talent that we have unless you make it Coach Lee. Now, I will say this, I completely disagree. If, and I hate to even speak on it, but if things go south, if things go sideways, I would not go with Monty Lee as the head coach. As much as I like Monty Lee, guys, can you imagine just the look of firing Kingston, but hiring the coach that just got fired from Clem Sucks, and now because they've gotten rid of him and gotten a new head coach, look at where Clem Sucks baseball is right now. You just can't do that. I don't see that happening. I would not advocate for that move. Tyler Knoll says, everybody's panicking, relax. There's still a lot of ball left to be played. The injuries they've had hurt immensely. We'll be all right. Let it play out and pass judgment when it's over. Joseph says, Gamecock fans should be thrilled. A lot to take away from the Arkansas series. I feel great again going into Tennessee. Travis said, definitely more encouraging this past weekend. I mean, dude, I'll tell you this. Like, am I frustrated? Sure, but I feel confident. I actually really feel confident going into this week. Now, guys, as we know, things can change quickly. So I'll just tell you right now, you go out there and you go 2-2 or worse this week, I don't know how good I'm feeling, right? I don't know how good I'm feeling. But I feel like coming back home to the friendly confines, I understand you were just at Founders Park and you lost your midweek to North Florida. I get it. But I think coming home, not trying to spoil any predictions, I think this team is going to play much, much, much better at the friendly confines on the home front than we saw over the last couple of weekends on the road. I really do. And I think this team, backs against the wall, will play much better baseball. Lynn Turner says, Getting to Omaha is tougher than people seem to think. Ask Tennessee 2022 and 2021. There are some really spoiled Gamecock fans. Baseball is streaky. Pitching seems to be coming back together. I agree. It was really, really good over the weekend. I think that is something that's really encouraging as well. Ethan says, if we take 2 out of 3 against Tennessee, I think that can give us confidence going in the postseason and getting healthier. No doubt. Yeah. And I mean, listen, if you take 2 out of 3, you'll finish your final 6 SEC games at a 3-3 clip. You sweep Tennessee, you finish 4-2. That's the dream scenario. And what I said, guys, before, if you go 4-2 over your last 6 SEC games, I think you'll be back top 8 national seed. I think a top 8 national seed is still in play for South Carolina. I really do. I think it's still in play. Absolutely. Brian Dean says to win 1 out of 3 in Fayetteville where the Hogs do not lose, it was impressive. Once we get our players acclimated back in the lineup, I expect to see the Gamecocks we saw at the beginning of the year. Yeah, Brian, I mean, you got to think again. They had lost 1 SEC game the entire season at Baum Walker Stadium. 1. They had lost 1. So you got to keep that perspective. Brian Dean on the football side of things, even though Diggs is from Louisiana, I hear he's leaning towards us. Because if we get the Diggs, he will be the starter in game 1. Brian, I don't know who you heard that from. I hope that's true, but I can tell you this. I think absolutely Logan Diggs. I mean, they wouldn't just hand him the job. He'd have to earn it. But I think it would be a safe bet that Logan Diggs would be your starter in the first game of the 2023 season. No question. No question. Brian Dean says Veach should be our closer. Well, Brian Dean, the good news is this. Veach is our closer. Is our closer. Brian Dean says he's got a friend who is huge in counter sports. His mom loved the USC visit and what Coach Beamer had to say. All right. Jacob E. says Sanders is just in his head. He threw carefree as a freshman and was great. I agree. Listen, I agree, Jacob E. I think it is more than anything him being in his own head. Bruin Nation says 70% voted yes on my Twitter poll question. He should be fired if we lose in regionals. Bruin Nation, that should be 100%. I mean, I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm not budging off what I said in the preseason. Supers or bust. End of story. End of story. That's it. Here's a really intriguing question. Will Hall says, I wonder if Sanders may decide to come back for his senior year if his draft status falls enough. Dude, that's a great question. Because I'll tell you this. I've thought Will Sanders was gone this entire time. And I know that the baseball draft is a weird thing. It's a weird thing, right? Very weird thing. But to think Will Sanders is going to take the next step, he's going to jump to the next level after this season, it's tough to fathom almost. You know, it's tough to fathom. I don't know. I really don't know. Your guess is as good as mine in regards to what is he going to do. Jacob E. says, if we didn't fire him after last season, he likely won't get fired to this season. Again, it all depends on how this weekend goes, SEC tournament and the postseason. I think he's earned another year. Jacob E., again, you hit the nail on the head. It all comes down to the postseason, truly. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. The phone lines are open. They are open. If you guys want to discuss what happened over the weekend, give your thoughts, your reactions, all that good stuff. Ethan says, should we be at all concerned that we're putting all our eggs in the Diggs basket at running back? I mean, Ethan, are we putting all of our eggs in there? I mean, I think we're just trying to get a really good player, and I'm sure they have backup plans, Ethan. I'm sure they do, but I mean, can you blame them for trying their hardest to land this kid? M. Colt says, if we make it to the Supers, we have to keep the coaching staff. I agree. That's a no-brainer. That's a given. In my opinion, it's a given. Lynn Turner says, how many teams do you know who could weather 3 to 4 starters out for an extended period of time? We've had some unfortunate hit-by-pitch injuries and a first baseman injured in a collision. We have had some bad luck, Lynn. The injuries have hurt us. 2 of our 3 from our starting rotation are gone, are not in the rotation right now. So we've dealt with adversity, no doubt. And hopefully the hope is now you've gotten most of those guys back. What happens with Will McGillis? I have no idea, but it was a nice sight to see Braylon Wimmer back in the lineup, who I thought had a good weekend. It was nice to see Talmadge Lecroy back in the lineup. Your defense gets set back to normal because of the return. Will Tippett back in the lineup. So I think that certainly is going to help. Certainly going to help. Let's see. Continuing the questions. Continuing the questions. Jeff Gullidge says, I hate to be that guy, or I have to be that guy, but instead of changing the break graphics, it could be a good promo spot and sponsor ad. Jeff Gullidge, you're 110% correct. That's something we're working on. It's a great spot. I mean, they serve as commercials, no doubt. Ruin Nation says Missouri will finish at 7, and they will somehow beat us. You might be right, which is sad. Twisted Rooster heard a Utah fan crying about the trash talk he heard at the Swamp last year. How will the fans of Texas and Oklahoma handle these SEC atmospheres? It's a great question, Twisted Rooster. I think it's going to be awesome. And I'm sure they're excited. I'm sure they're fired up as well. I think it's going to be an incredible thing. I really do. It's just going to make it's going to make the conference even better. It's going to make the game. Who else? I can't wait until South Carolina plays Texas and Oklahoma. And not just in football, all the sports. Jeff Gullidge says calling it now will upset Georgia and lose to Mizzou again. Madison Duncan got the grass cut. Just tuning in. Madison, what's going on? Appreciate you. Madison says, can't wait to sport my new TSUS threads against the 49ers. Fight, win. Love that, Madison. Have fun tomorrow night. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Madison got into the golf polos. Really good stuff. Love it. Travis says, great to see Baum Walker in person. Hope you had fun. Joseph says, I'm not saying to hire Lee. I'm saying he's the only one who can convince these young guys to stay. Joseph, that's really the kicker. You want to talk about the kicker, my friend? Let's say the Gamecocks do make the Supers, right? Let's say the Gamecocks make the Supers. And again, I want your participation here. You can call in, you can text in, you can comment, whatever you want to do. Let's say the Gamecocks make the Supers, lose in the Super Regionals. I think that'll be enough. To keep Mark Kingston in Columbia for at minimum another year. Monty Lee is going to be a hot commodity after this season for the job he's done as an assistant coach. I think that makes sense. How will fans feel if after this season, again, you go to the Super Regionals, you get eliminated, but Monty Lee takes a job over the summer? How will fans feel going into 2024? I feel like a lot of the same frustrations or doubts, if you will, about Kingston and his program, I think those will all come rushing back to the forefront. Because I think a lot of people give Monty Lee the credit for this season. I mean, you've seen it just in this season, guys. When Carolina was 34-6, it's all Monty Lee. And when Carolina loses 8-9, it's all Mark Kingston. I mean, you're seeing it firsthand, man. You're seeing it firsthand. Bruin Nation's got a prediction here. I'm calling it now. 2-2 this week, 0-2 in the tournament, and 1-2 in regionals and done. Woo, Bruin Nation. Oh, my goodness, Bruin Nation. There's going to be some changes. If that happens, there's going to be some upset. Yours truly is going to be pissed off. I can tell you that right now, Bruin Nation. Yours truly going to be pissed off. Bruin Nation, supers or bust for me. It has been all year. Same. Jeff Gullidge says, did we pick up a welcome home over the weekend? Did we? I don't think we did. Travis says, if we take 2 or 3 from Tennessee and we make a decent run at Hoover, do we get our top 8 national seed back? Travis, I think some of it will have to do with what the teams ahead of us do. We need to be North Carolina fans this weekend as they take on Clem Sucks. There's some other teams ahead of South Carolina. You got to hope they lose. I think it's possible. I think if you go 3-1 this week, 2 of 3 from Tennessee, I think you'll have to win a couple in Hoover, but I think it's possible. Ruby Nation, what I've seen the last 3 weeks, it's hard not to expect a regional loss. I hear you. Scott Lawson, happy birthday to Scott Lawson. It's my birthday, foos. Erting Irish says the break music is good. Thank you. M. Duncan, Madison, Gamecocks on the upswing following the weekend. Momentum builder for sure. Okay, so Madison's right there. Ruin Nation and John Edward going at it in the comments. Love to see it. Guys, hey, we've entered hour number 3 for the first time ever. First time ever. We're in hour number 3. Those in the Big Cock Club Discord, by the way, leave your questions in the TDC question channel. We'll get those there. Greg Bedinger, we are ranked 13th in the D1 Baseball Top 25 this week. Brendan M. comments and says, Mark Kingston is killing what Monty Lee built. Oh, jeez. Guys, we've been live for over 2 hours. Not a single call has come in. You believe that? Not a single call. Just comment. And comments, hey, if we just want to do comments, comments are fine. Comments are just fine with me. Totally fine with that. Joseph says, give us NCAA football back. I'm ready for it, man. Hey, think about this. The season simulation series will start soon. Joseph. Travis says, what's Charlotte's record now? Great question. Great question, which we will talk more about that, Travi, since we've got these topics, right? The format of the Daily Crow. Tomorrow, I'll do a full breakdown on Charlotte in the midweek game. I will do a full breakdown on that. Go through kind of how I used to break down midweek games. I mean, it's funny we're doing that the final midweek game. But kind of how I used to break down midweek games. I'll give you guys an idea who's pitching for both sides and what Charlotte looks like, record stats, all that good stuff. So, GA says it feels like the 10 to 12 shows from the beach. GA, are you saying that in a positive, in a negative? Did you like those shows? Did you dislike those shows? I'm curious. Brendan says, when is Homie Lamont Enjoyer calling in? Our guy Dalton. Is Dalton going to call in today? Good question. Good question. Will Hall says, generally curious as I don't know with NIL being a thing, are they planning to bring back the NCAA football video games? I'm out of the loop on that. If it's been talked about. Yes, Will. Yes. That game was supposed to drop this summer. It sounds like now it's going to be next summer. So the game is coming back, though. I don't know exactly how they're doing it. I don't think every team is going to be in the game, Will. That's the thing. I don't think every team's going to be in there. They have to sign off on it. But I mean, dude, if your team's not in the game, if your school's not willing to make that happen, damn, I almost want to say find a different team. Saturday Down South just dropped their updated SEC baseball power rankings. Gamecocks at number 6 right now, which is really interesting. Seeing that Kentucky's at 7 and Kentucky swept Carolina. Even I think that's a little bit absurd, but whatever. Arkansas at number 1, by the way. Let's see. Madison says, I'm with you on the bad luck interviewing during the game. Funny you mentioned as the bad luck was happening real time. Yeah. Gage Wood, man, we needed a Gage Wood interview and we didn't get one. Unfortunately, we didn't get one. Unfortunately, we did not get one. We got BDD in the chat. Big Dick Dale, what's going on, man? What's going on, Dale? Again, guys, 843-790-3372. You can text that number, call that number. You can comment on YouTube. And also, guys, these don't have to be Gamecock questions. These can be whatever randomness y'all want to discuss, talk about. I know I don't have to tell all of you that because, those who tune in the Daily Crow, somewhat unhinged, which we like, which it's cool, which is fun. It's fun. But I don't have to tell you all that. As Dale comments, right? As Dale comments. as Dale comments here. Anyways, guys, would love to hear your thoughts on the new TDC format, by the way. 3 hours. 3 hours. Travis says, if they don't have all the teams on the game, I think the game will take a hit. People want realistic stuff when it comes to sports games. I agree, Travis. I agree. Luke RJ says, Chris, I like the break music, but the original break music was the best that's on the podcast. Also, that 2023 Beamer Rattler hat is awesome. Thank you so much, Luke RJ. And I'll see what I can do in regards to the countdown, the 5-minute countdown. We may go back to the slides and just put music over that. I just wanted to bring music back into the countdown. Dale from East Tennessee says, hey, Chris, can you refund me those $2 from Friday? Sorry, Dale. We got a no refund policy. Dale, you got Cash App, Dale? You got PayPal? How about Venmo? You got any of those, Dale? John Evers says, I love it. The 3 hours will get me through the second half of my day. I love that. Brennan M says, Luke RJ cares too much about the music. I hear you. So, guys, I know I kind of teased it or talked about it a bit last week. But let me give you just some further insight into how, we talked about we're going to change the way we produce the content, going to be much more digestible. And I can show you better than I can tell you. You will see it today. But if you like listening to TSUS in regards to like the podcast side of things, you guys are in for a treat. Because the way we're going to do this thing is drop these shows after today's show. It's not just going to be at 5 o'clock. It's not going to be one big, The Daily Crow, May 15th. It's not going to be one big 2.5-hour show. We're going to drop a bunch of I call them, saying mini episodes. I don't know if that's really the right verbiage, but it's going to be more so like 20 to 30 minute segments that we drop. The whole show will be there, but it'll be broken out. So for example, from hour number 1, we'll have, why it's not time to hit the panic button on South Carolina baseball. Why I think Eli Jones should be the Gamecocks' new number 1 starter. Top 10 Gamecocks heading in the 2023 season. Is it still super regionals or bust for Mark Kingston? You guys can see I've thought this out already. That's 4 separate podcasts right there. Then Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, his conversation will be totally separate. And then finally, we'll have our Q&A power hour probably in one segment as well. Some days we may break it out into 2 if we have tons of calls and questions and stuff like that. So, again, it's just going to be much easier to consume, much easier to digest, and much easier for you all. Like if there's certain things like, hey, maybe you don't really care to hear about Eli Jones. Maybe you don't want to hear about this certain thing. Maybe you don't like this guest, which if you don't, that's unfortunate. But, it'll just be much easier to, instead of feeling like, oh, my God, there's a 2.5-hour podcast to listen to, it's 6 30-minute shows, which I think will be much, much easier. Or 5 30-minute shows, whatever it is. So I'm excited for that, man. I'm excited for this sort of this pivot, this new journey we're taking, the evolution, if you will. I'm excited for it, man. And I appreciate you all, your love and support in the midst of it. Let's get back in the questions. Ethan says Petrie slowing down has been a big part of the decline as well. I know it's hard to ask a freshman to carry this team, but it has definitely affected the confidence of the lineup. Ethan, you're absolutely correct, man. You're absolutely correct. And really the only reason, Ethan, I think that I haven't harped on it more is because he is a true freshman. And you're already asking so much of a freshman. But, Ethan, to your point, one of the big reasons this lineup's suffering so much lately is because of the slump that Ethan Petrie has found himself in. You think about early in the season, the Yardcocks were getting those momentum-shifting, game-changing knocks. You think back to Florida. You think back to LSU. It was happening on a nightly basis. You're not getting those anymore. I recall in the Sunday game against Arkansas, 2 men on, Carolina's up 1-0, and Ethan Petrie's up. I think it was like the 4th inning. But I was sitting there just thinking to myself, this is the moment where early in the season, Ethan Petrie hits a home run. And right now, it's just not happening. You're just not getting that big swing. And I know it's a lot of pressure to put on a true freshman, but there's a reason you moved him to the 3-hole. He's been your guy. He's been your dude. And so there's certain pieces on this ball club that you're not going to reach your max potential of what this season and what this team can be if X player doesn't perform. Ethan Petrie's become one of them. Getting him off the schneid is a huge, huge key for this ball club as we close out the regular season and head into the SEC tournament and the postseason as well. Got to get Ethan Petrie off the schneid. Got to get Ethan Petrie off the schneid. Gavin says, it seems Petrie, Moose, and Cassis all need to be rolling to get back to dominating. You're right. I mean, you need your big guys to step up, man. No question. You need your big guys to step up. Big time. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Guys, Hoover next week. Hoover next week. And I will say this. Depending on how far the Yardcocks go, we may head down there. I will say I'm not going to head down there start of the week. I would like to go. I really would, man. I'd really like to go just because I've never been. But what I don't want to do is go down there for one day, we lose, we're done, we're cooked, and I just wasted all my time and wasted my money getting down there. And you know what I'm saying? Just like it wasn't worth the trip. So, but the plan, the hope is, Friday, Saturday, we make it that far, head down to Hoover, go catch some baseball. And, that is the hope at least. So we'll see. We'll see if the Yardcocks have got a run in them. Of course, Hoover's been a house of horrors for county baseball over the years. But you never know. This season's been crazy, man. It's been crazy. Travis says, we hit it good, and we either hit it right to the guy. Messina got robbed on the potential homer. That was deflating. I mean, Travis, what about the freaking line drive back at the pitcher that was snagged? Double play. You had first and third and nobody out. That right there, that defined Game 3. I mean, it really did. Yardcocks had a chance early. Couldn't get it done. Guys, let's jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll continue to take your questions, your comments, your calls here in hour number 3. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back. Taking your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Monday, May the 15th, 2023. I wanted to mention this, by the way, because I see Luke RJ commenting, podcast music was way better. Well, Luke RJ, the podcast music, or just that music you're speaking of in general, it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. If you tuned into the beginning of the show, you would know that was the music at the intro. And when you listen to the podcast, guess what? That's still the music in the intro and the outro. So that's actually still the music. I just thought we would switch things up and change up the music for the 5-minute breaks. But with Luke RJ, it's always something. Dale for me. I can't even read this guy. Dale from East Tennessee responds, what's a podcast? Is it some kind of fishing line? I hear you, man. Yeah. Something like that. Something like that. Brewer Nation says, we're 3-8 since Florida, but people say there's no facts or reason why we may go 2-2 to finish the season. 0-2 in tournament, where we always struggle, and 1-2 in regionals. That's 3-6 in those games. Brewer Nation, I'll tell you this. And I know John Edward and you were going back and forth. I know you weren't going back and forth with me. Do I necessarily think that's going to happen, Brewer Nation? Not really. Maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic, or maybe it's just me with wishful thinking, or I'm trying to speak it almost into existence. And I know, Brewer Nation, you want to see the Yardcocks go undefeated and win the national titles. We all do. But if that's your prediction, I respect it. And do I think that that's something that there's just no way that happens? There's just no way. That's impossible. I'm not going to say that. This team could certainly do that. I mean, our history in Hoover sucks. It speaks for itself, ladies and gentlemen. Our history in Hoover is trash. So I'm certainly not putting it past us to do as you've mentioned. And I mean, you get cold. I mean, there's no guarantee this team will snap out of it. GA says, I gotta read this comment, GA. GA says in the Big Cock Club Discord and the TDC Questions channel, where's Robbie Davis? He's probably taking his post-lunch walk or afternoon nap. There's no voicemails either, Brandon. No. Nobody's left a voicemail. I think maybe the people who normally like to call in just, I don't know. I don't know, Brendan. If you said you heard the phone, Brendan, I didn't even have the phone plugged in the first hour. So I don't know what you would have heard, because I didn't even have the phone plugged in. I didn't plug in the phone until after Mark Rogers came on. But no, we have no voicemails. No voicemails. So I don't know. I think, unfortunately, guys, baseball is one of those games. Like, this won't be a problem with football. Football will have plenty of voicemails. Baseball is one, the first signs of trouble we start to lose, folks just check out, man. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, and I think it's a good idea for us to challenge the Rowdy Roosters this weekend. But unfortunately, I would not be shocked if the crowd was less than stellar this weekend at Founders. And that would be sad. That would be sad. Let's jump to the phone lines.
Call from
Robbie Davis, Zaxby's Hall of Famer.
The Zaxby's Hall of Famer, Robbie Davis. What's up, man? How are you?
This is weird because usually, but I'm doing fantastic, by the way. This is weird because I'm usually by now, like around this time, I'm getting my 10,000 steps in. And then Robbie, I usually eat lunch or.
I was going to say, you could still be doing that, Robbie. You could walk and talk, man. It's possible. So
I've done it before, but it was dangerous. I also think from what you said about Eli Jones in the first hour. Okay, I absolutely agree with you. He has absolutely 1,000% in my book has earned the right to start on Thursday. I believe is whenever we play Tennessee, right? Thursday.
yes, Thursday, Friday, Saturday will be the series this weekend.
Okay. I couldn't remember. My brain went blank last night when I was trying to think about it. I definitely believe that he has earned that starting position for a weekend start. And if I was our pitching coach, I would tell him flat out, this wasn't just given to you because we're in a slump. This was given to you because, one, you have proven yourself this season and you earned this. So go out there and take care of business, and let's get this dub and beat Tennessee Thursday night.
Yeah, it's a pivotal series this weekend, man. I mean, of course, we'll talk about it later in the week, but I mean, it's a huge week, man. It's a huge week for the Yardcocks. You know, I know I've been probably a little bit optimistic, a little bit more optimistic than most, but you know, this is a huge week. I mean, if you're gonna, in my opinion, get it back going and get the momentum going, circle the wagons, if you will. If you're gonna do that, it starts this week. You come back home, 4 games in your home field. Tennessee is a team that, just took 2 or 3 from Kentucky, who's a good team, but we all know they've been completely different on the road, a completely different team.
Yeah.
So they're very beatable. They're very gettable. And you lose a home series going in the postseason, there's going to be nothing to feel good about. I mean, Tennessee 2-11 on the road. You allow that team, and you're 25-4 at home, just to give you some perspective. So you allow that Tennessee team to come in, you lose 2 or 3. Boy, it's going to be some really, really anxious feelings going into the SEC tournament.
Yeah. It definitely will be. But I'm really curious. I'm really excited to see what the team looks like tomorrow night. And then, like I said, extremely excited to see how it goes this weekend. The only person that I know of that's going to start this weekend is Eli Jones. Besides that, I don't really know.
I think it's safe to say Jack Mahoney will be in the weekend rotation. And I would assume Matthew Becker will also be there. So I think we know that
Mahoney's the Saturday. He's usually the Saturday guy, right?
Well, game 2, yes. He's your game 2 starter, yes. But I think it's a safe bet that Jack Mahoney, after 7 scoreless against Arkansas, will start this weekend.
Yes, he pitched very well in that game. It was just we couldn't get the bats going. It's like one week we've got good pitching and good hitting, and then the next week we got good hitting and horrible pitching. I mean, it's like you like to say, it's like a roller coaster up and down, and it's starting to get a little frustrating. But we just gotta keep going. Like the season's not quite over yet. We still got 2 more weeks of the regular season, then we get into postseason.
Yeah,
Chandler just texted me, and
there's still a lot of baseball to be played for sure. What'd your brother text you? What did Chandler say?
My brother asked me. I asked him. I was like, if I'm able to get tickets to either to the Thursday game against Tennessee, because he's probably not going to be able to go tomorrow. If I'm able to get tickets to the Thursday game against Tennessee, you want to go? And he said, the season's not over yet. I said, no, we got this weekend. I said, we got the game tomorrow night, 3 games this weekend, possibly a midweek game next week, and then a 3-game series to close out the season against Tennessee. And then the regular season will be over. Then we'll hit the conference tourney. So
Yeah, just 4 more games in the regular season. Then we get in the SEC tournament and postseason play, man. So if you're going to get out to Founders Park, this is the week to do it. So, I mean, I feel confident saying we will have more opportunities this season because of postseason. I think the Gamecocks are still going to host a regional, but yeah, last chance to catch a regular season game will be this week. So should be a fun week, man. Should be a fun week, no doubt.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here and get ready to go on my walk.
I love it.
10,000 steps and then call it a day.
I love that. Robbie, I appreciate you, man. It's always a pleasure to hear from you.
You too, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, man. You be good. Take care. Great stuff from our friend Robbie Davis as he prepares for his 10,000 steps. As he prepares for his 10,000 steps. I love it. Jeff Gullidge says, God, I pray it doesn't happen. But can you imagine if we lose out to UNC week 1 by 17 or more points? You're right. The phone line in that last hour will be ridiculous. Madison Duncan made the point. Maybe move the phone calls the first hour. You know, Madison, I really like this format. I like being able to go ahead, say, here's why I like it too, Madison. I like doing it in the first hour because it allows the callers, folks with questions like yourself, to hear all of the information, react to the information, and have questions immediately on the information, like immediate feedback. So that's why I like it. And also, too, I like to go ahead and get after it and get it out in that first hour. And then, you know, hour number 3, we kind of almost kick back and let you guys take over the show as a traditional TDC has operated. So, yeah, John, number one more regular season week. One more. And I see Dale, apparently he was put to sleep. Dale put to sleep by the call. Travis says, we are going to the postseason. And guess what? The season is now 0-0, new season. Travis, a great point you make. And that was the point I made about the panic button and why I just think it's silly to do it. I mean, guys, whether we won 50 games this season or we won 30, like whether we were the number 1 overall national seed or the very last team to get in, the expectations and the goal in the postseason was the exact same. It is the exact same. Omaha's the goal and the expectation no matter what. It is. And you think about it, like, if you wave the white flag and you throw in the towel every time you lose a series or every time something goes awry, like this sequence, remember the weekend will show you why it's just silly to overreact in the game of baseball. Look at this last weekend, for example. South Carolina loses game 1 to Arkansas. Folks on social media, season's over. Throw in the towel. Fire Kingston. Fire everyone. 24 hours later, Carolina takes game 2. Are we back? Are the Yardcocks back? Carolina baseball's back. Dare I say we're back? Less than 24 hours later, Gamecocks lose game 3. We're terrible. Throw in the towel. Fire Kingston. Fire everybody. This team's frauds. You look so ridiculous. Take a step back from the ledge. Ole Miss, who went, 13-17 last year in SEC play. They were the last team in last year, and they won the national championship. I wonder how many times their fan base almost jumped off the ledge last year. It was probably a mess because every fan base does what I just mentioned from this previous weekend. Every fan base does it. How many times do you think their fan base jumped off the ledge or was about to jump off the ledge? And they won the national championship. I know that's a one-off scenario, but it just goes to show, guys, that you never know. So what good is there in hitting the panic button right now? What do you accomplish out of that? What do you get out of that? What is the point of it? So whether you won 50 games and you won the SEC tournament, or you won 32 games, went 2-Q in Hoover, you get to the postseason, to Travis' point, you're 0-0. That's what matters. Like what you do in the postseason, that's what matters. They could have won 50 games this year in the regular season, could have won the SEC. Had this team lost in the regionals, fire Kingston. And on the flip side, this team could have snuck in with 30 wins, 12-18, or a 13-17 SEC record. And if they went to Omaha, extend Kingston. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's all about the postseason, man. That's what you're judged on at South Carolina. That's what you're judged on. Bottom line. And if you can get to 40 wins this week, which you can, sitting at 37-14, you can. If you can get to 40 wins, I'll say you had a really, really good season. Maybe great's too strong because, the way you started, the way you finished has left a lot to be desired. But, guys, you get to 40 wins, especially if you can take a couple in Hoover. You had a great year, in my opinion. A really, really good year. I'll say that. Travis says, we are making the postseason. Let's just see where the chips fall. Again, I'm not saying don't be frustrated. But throwing in the towel, again, to the point I made, like we saw it this weekend. Fire everyone. Oh, everybody's great again. We're back. Carolina baseball's back. Oh, never mind. Fire everyone. Like, come on, dude. And it's the typical slapdicks on social media. I mean, Bruin Nation sees them. Twitter was a mess. And it'll be those same slapdicks that if Carolina goes to Omaha, I knew it all along. I was there from the jump. I knew it. I just knew we were cold, and once we got back going, Kingston's the best. Oh, man. But you know what? I hope that's the case. As long as we're in Omaha, I don't give a damn. Neither does any of us. Nobody should care. Lynn Turner makes a great point here. We won't be the last team to get in for the postseason, and Ole Miss has proved that even the last team can win it all. It's a great point, Lim. Here's the funny thing, Lim. A lot of times, it's a team like South Carolina that wins the whole damn thing. If the Gamecocks, here's the thing, Lynn, and everybody else. If the Gamecocks, and it has to start this week, in my opinion. It has to start this weekend at minimum. But if they can get back, if this right here can be the start of the upswing, and let's just say the peak of the upswing is what we saw Florida weekend, right? What we saw Florida weekend. Would you guys agree? Or game 1 against LSU. That's the peak. If we've done like this. We've started out, ascended, got to the peak. Here we come back down. Right now we're down here. We came down here. If this can now be the inflection point where we begin to ascend again, and we're getting a little bit better, hey, we have a 3-1 week at minimum, 4-0. Starting to get a little bit better. Going to the tournament, SEC tournament. Ain't got to win the whole thing. Win a game or two. Whatever. Get a little bit better. And then we start to hit our stride again in the regionals, and we start to get back closer to our peak. Guys, that's the best possible position you could be in. Now, it's got to work out that way. And there's no guarantee it will. But I'm just making the point that happens in baseball. There's teams that do that. That happens. We see it all the time in MLB. It's the team that gets hot. The question, again, as I mentioned last week, will South Carolina have that upswing? Is that upswing going to be there? That's the question. If it's there, if the Gamecocks get back to playing the way they were, I'll take them to win it all. I don't think there's a team in college baseball that'll beat them. Guys, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into one final break. On the side, we'll close out the show and take more of your questions, your comments, your calls, and more here on a Monday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie Ho. Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back. Final 15 minutes or so here on the Daily Crow here on this Monday, May the 15th, 2023, taking your questions, your comments, your calls as well. 843-790-3377. This is all about you guys, the Power Hour. Your questions, everything you want to discuss. By the way, shout out to Gamecocks softball headed to the regionals. Florida State regional as the 2 seed. Carolina is set to take on UCF Friday night, 7 o'clock. The game, by the way, being televised on ESPN2. So shout out to the softball team. A great run in the SEC tournament. The first time a 10 seed, or I think a double-digit seed at all, had ever made the title game. Unfortunately, they fall to the 1 seed Tennessee. But either way, a great run by South Carolina. And they are the 2 seed in the Tallahassee regional. I told you, Brendan M., I would get to it. So there you go. That's for you. Let's see. Jacob E., any news on McGillis? Great question here, Jacob E. From what I was told, the bone has healed. Apparently, there might be some nerve damage that's holding him out. I don't know exactly. I mean, you hope that's not the case. But there's something holding him out. I don't know. I think something else has come up. Erting Ivory tickets for Omaha run about 300. I have no idea, to be honest with you. I have not looked. How about this? We got a Gator in here. Octavian Cador. What up, Gamecock Nation? Go Gators. He must be, Octavian, you must be pissed off that guy picked y'all to go 2-10 this season. Madison Duncan says, hell yeah, way to go, ladies. Indeed. We have the question right here. Jeff Gullidge, do you think letting out Gamecock softball team will bounce back this weekend? I think so. I mean, it's a tough regional for sure. Florida State's very, very good. UCF's also got a good program, but you take them on. Again, ESPN2 for the softball game. That's some good attention there. It's pretty solid. So, let's see. We'll continue with the questions. Octavian Cador having fun with this 38-6. I hear you, man. John Edwards says, wouldn't shock me to see Florida have a very bad year. Yeah, Billy Napier is on the hot seat. There is no question about that. Billy Napier on the hot seat. Again, guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Would love to hear your feedback on everything, how you guys like this new format of the Daily Crow. 3 hours. 3 hours of TDC. Three hours of TDC. Billy already on the hot. Oh, yeah. Dude, Sunbelt Billy is definitely on the hot seat. You kidding me? Bro, if they go 6-6 or worse, if they go worse than 6 or 6, he may not be back. Who knows? Lynn Turner says there's no shame in losing the Tennessee softball in a close game. They're a softball blue blood. Indeed. Brendan M in the Big Cock Club Discord says, imagine losing to Jason Brown. That's Brendan. That genuinely makes me laugh. That's funny. That's actually really funny. That's actually really, really funny. He said, imagine. You know, to the point of Mark Rogers. I mean, you see this headline from Dogs HQ. Georgia commit Ryan Puglisi was blunt when asked if Dylan Raiola's commitment gave him any pause. Quote, nothing changes. So they got a 4-star quarterback. He's unfazed by Raiola committing. Like, people just want to be a part of Georgia, man. These guys, none of them want to leave. None of them they all want to go to Georgia. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. It's crazy. Guys, you'll notice I retweeted Mark Ryan's tweet about expectations. One of the reasons I retweeted is because I made that graphic for Mark. And I think dude, listen, I think I don't care how you feel about Mark Ryan. I think he's spot on for the 2023 season and, goals and expectations, if you will. And, he's got his 2023 expectations, the goal to be 9-3, second in the East, success 8-4, third in the East, disappointing 7-5, and a failure 6-6. I mean, I don't think any Gamecock fans would disagree with that. I don't think anybody would. Officially Sports says, do you think we'll get the Notre Dame running back? Right now, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like LSU is the favorite. I think he probably goes to LSU. I don't know, though. I mean, I'm spitballing. I'm guessing. I'm totally guessing. So, I'm totally guessing. Let's see. Ruination thought it looked like one of your graphics. Yeah. So Mark actually hit me up, asked me to make him those graphics. I actually did one for Clem Sucks also, just helping Mark. It didn't take me too long, but yeah, that is that. But I didn't feel the need to throw my logo on it. I mean, I made it for Mark. I mean, I don't, whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, I think it's an interesting talking point either way. So this happened today, 2:15. This just came out. Brett McMurphy tweeted, Clemson, FSU, Miami, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech are the magnificent 7 ACC schools, sources have told Action Network. These schools, Ross Dellinger reported, have met in past several months with lawyers examining grant of rights to determine just how unbreakable it is. Their ACC deal runs through 2036. Wow. Okay, then. Interesting. I love we got Gamecock and Gator fans going back and forth in the comments. Love that. No, Brennan, it's okay. He says he could have gave you credit. Brennan, I didn't expect it. I didn't need it. I gave Mark that graphic under the understanding that he was just going to use it for him. I'm good. I mean, it's literally for Mark's use. I don't need the credit for it. Hell, I even tried to put the Fan Upstate graphic on it. He didn't want it on there. So, dude, it doesn't matter to me, man. It's all good. It's all good. So, it's all good. No biggie. No biggie at all. So. Mm-mm. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. I don't know. I feel like I should bring you all on this journey. As we close out the show here, just about 5 minutes to go. As you all know, I've never been to Hoover. Never been to the SEC tournament. I've also never been to SEC Media Days. And I've never been to Nashville, which is where SEC Media Days is located. And guys, I obviously don't put myself in a box of, I hesitate greatly to call myself media. Like I just think that puts me in a box I don't want to be in. I'm a content creator. I'm many things, right? I have, there's many different channels. There's many different things that we do, that we hit on, and we do merchandise, we do events. We're all over the place, right? I'm not just like, we're media. You see what I'm saying? And so I know events like getting credentials to the SEC tournament, getting credentials to media days, that's reserved for media boys. But you would think the heights that TSUS has reached, the overall reach that we have. I mean, why would TSUS not? Why would TSUS not get credentials for those events? So I'm going to bring you all on this journey because I don't care. I don't have the ego of, if they say no, guys, who gives a damn? We're going to cover it either way. I'm going to cover the heck out of it either way. We're going to stream it, do different things, like whatever. But I'm going to bring you all on this journey. I just applied over the break for credentials to the SEC tournament in Hoover next week. If we get them, we get them. We don't, whatever. What's funny about these credentials is like the rules feel like they're just completely made up. Like the rules don't make any sense, you know? I mean, I was told that when Shane Beamer was hired, I was told by Steve Fink himself, hey, you got to be this, this, and this. And, you know, only credentialed media members can interview our coach. And then you see Shane Beamer going on who knows what YouTube page. And my guy Jake Crane talks to me and said, shit, I'm not credentialed by South Carolina. So, I mean, it ain't, dude, it's fine. I know for a fact that I'm on South Carolina football's blacklist. That's totally fine. But I hope Steve Fink didn't put me on the SEC blacklist. I mean, my God. I just want to go and check it out. I don't even care about asking a question. I don't even want to ask a question. I'm totally cool with it. I'd just like to see SEC Media Days. I think that would be cool. Bro, can you imagine us getting a table and going live TDC from SEC Media Days? That'd be crazy. Again, I can make content much more effectively from the studio anyways. But, and I love how nobody, the comments are a madhouse with going after this Gator guy. I love it. It's funny. But anyways, I'll keep you guys updated because if they say no, it doesn't bother me, man. I got no ego in it. I've been declined many times. I mean, I'll never apply for credentials with South Carolina ever again. Number one, I don't even want them. Like I would not be welcome in that room. I wouldn't. Let's just call it for what it is. There's a lot of guys. I've got relationships, and I know there's some people that cover the Gamecocks that like me. There's a lot of guys, though, the big J journos in the Gamecock space that cover the Gamecocks that are not a fan of mine. And I would not be welcome in that room. I know Steve Fink's not a fan of mine. Some of the traditional newspaper guys, some guys over at Gamecock Central. Hell, I'd assume the Big Spur. Hell, John Whittle's had me blocked for 6 years. So that's not really a room I'd want to be in. And also, guys, I'm not media. I don't want to be in the press box during a game. I want to be in the studio cutting up content or in the stadium rocking the colors. Like, I don't fit into the box of traditional media. But, like, the SEC, man, like, and I'm happy for them, but, like, the guys over at that SEC podcast, like, they're going. Like, come on now. Like, why not? What box does TSUS not check? What box do we not check? You know what I mean? And Brendan says, Chris Phillips is the kind of person to get credentials and not go. Well, Brendan, you know what I'll do? If I get credentials and I can't go, I'll give you the tickets to Hoover, my guy. You can go. How about it? No, I mean, listen, I get the credentials. We're going to Hoover. Bottom line. We're going to Hoover. So I don't know, man. It's just kind of a funny thing. We'll see what happens. I'll keep you guys updated, but I don't know. I'm not banking on it. I'm not banking on it in the slightest. Guys, I think the first 3-hour TDC was a massive success. I don't know about you all. This was a blast, though. Had a ton of fun. We'll continue to do this. The format will be the same each and every single day. And I hope that the calls pick up. I know that 2 to 3 is a different time slot for folks. But again, guys, I can't I can't say it enough. I can't urge you enough. If you can't call in the 2 to 3 slot, call whenever you want. The phone line, the hotline is always here. Leave us your questions, your comments, your calls. You can call into that number and leave us a voicemail. That line is always there. You can call into it, give me your thoughts, and we'll play it on the show in the 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock hour. Guys, hey, appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. I see you, Chase Floyd, Travi, see Youngblood, everybody in the Big Cock Club Discord. Appreciate it. That's going to do it for me. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank y'all so much. Have a great rest of your Monday, and we will talk to you all